Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing GT3 Championship Season 2 for 2021. And it's today, Round 3, the Red Bull Ring. We're here in Austria at the legendary circuit for some fantastic racing which lies ahead. And indeed, we have the same format as always, the two races, the sprint race and the feature race. But preceding all that, of course, we do have that 15-minute qualifying session. So our schedule for today, for those who are uninitiated, at 8 o'clock British Summer Time this evening, or UTC +1, we'll be getting underway with the 15-minute qualifying session, and then after that we go straight into the sprint race, which will be a 15-minute race, full attack, no pit stops required, no strategy. Our drivers are meant to push from start to finish to try and finish as far up the order as possible, and then we'll take a brief break, and then we'll come back for the feature race, the 60-minute strategy race, at 5 minutes to 9 this evening. I'm your commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and you can follow this broadcast tonight on 3 different platforms: the official NXTGEN Racing YouTube channel, the NXTGEN Racing Facebook page, alternatively on my own personal Twitch channel, that's TX141 on Twitch. But without further ado, we must introduce our partners, Next Level Racing and also Apex Racing Academy. And starting with Apex Racing Academy, let's introduce them. So who are Apex Racing Academy? Well, they're not just a setup shop, they are dedicated to making you better at iRacing with services, access to drivers and features not found on other driving schools and academies. Working with them will see you connecting with pros like never before. You can learn how to prepare for a race, build setups, improve lap times and understand how to use telemetry tools such as VRS. Every week they host multiple sessions where members can join the coaches and take advantage of group coaching sessions. In partnership with SDK Gaming, all the data provided will be automatically synced directly to your PC. No need to go hunting for setup, replay or ghost files, the data is right there when you turn the simulator on. If you're interested, why not sign up now at apexracingac.com. That's apexracingac.com. Now from one partner to another, we must now also introduce Next Level Racing. Founded in 2009, Next Level Racing is the world's leading simulation brand, revolutionising simulation with its industry-leading product range, with a clear focus on innovation and quality to meet the demanding needs of sim racers. Next Level Racing's designs and technology shall take your sim racing experience to the next level. If you want to know more about their products, be sure to head to their official website, nextlevelracing.com today. That's nextlevelracing.com. Well, of course, we're grateful to have our two senior partners working with us, without whom this would not be possible. But having introduced our partners, let's come down to our drivers. Now, last time out, we were, of course, at Donington Park in the United Kingdom, and as we've moved across into Central Europe, let's just recall the story. After 2 rounds in the Pro class, we have Billy Fletcher leading right now in dominant form, having picked up the maximum possible points haul once again at Donington. 230 points to his name right now and carving his way ahead of the rest of the field in the Pro category. In P2 chasing after him is of course Harry Melvin, and we've got Jaco Boschoff there in P3 on 77 points. It was a difficult time for a lot of our pro drivers at Donington. Indeed, many drivers succumbing to the British circuit, which proved to be a very challenging circuit throughout. And we can see there, for example, Colin Martin down in P9 having a decent sprint race, but a disastrous feature race on only 24 points. We look across, of course, to our amateur class, and we can see that the story there is a little bit tighter up the front. What with George Bland leading on 115 points, picking up the win in the sprint race at Donington, but having a disaster in the feature race. A good recovery effort, but it was a disaster all things considered, and he'll be looking to bounce back today. Comparatively, Jochen Seeger pulling off the win in the feature race at Donington on 85 points as it stands in P2 right now. But the one driver who'll be absolutely kicking himself, and indeed when I caught up with him earlier, he was saying how much he regretted losing the win, throwing away the win, with it being well within sight. Nigel Stock there down in P10, the Mercedes driver on 40 points in the end, missing out on that win, and there was plenty more points on the table. But of course, as we look a little bit further back out that table, we can see Ollie Wayne there in P3 having a very good performance at Donington, picking up the fastest lap in both the sprint and also the feature race, and on 84 points and nipping at the heels of Seeger and chasing after George Bland, who, whilst he is leading, is definitely feeling the increasing pressure from the guys behind. Now, as we look to the track, we are of course at the Red Bull Ring, as mentioned earlier, Spielberg in the Styrian region of Austria, and as you can see from the diagram provided us by simracingwiki.com, we have got a total of 9 corners, or 10 depending on how you interpret the little left-hand kink going up into what is the Remus corner. For the purposes of today, we are going to be calling it out as 10 corners rather than 9 depicted here, so Little Kink will be treated as turn 2, but we can see there the run up into Niki Lauda corner, named of course after the infamous Formula 1 driver who's no longer with us sadly and is deeply missed in the motorsport industry. But we've also got corners such as Remus, Gosser, Power Horse at turn number 6 and Jochen Rindt corner at turn number 9, Rindt of course being another famous motorsporting name. With that track covered, let's have a look at our reference lap then, brought to you by Matt Emmons in the Mercedes AMG. So coming out of the final corner and out of turn 10, getting as much speed out of the corner, you're going to see charge up towards turn 1 here. He's going to want to nail that apex as closely as possible, coming down at the 100 board there to second gear as he hits the apex before getting back on the throttle and charging up the hill towards turn number 3, up towards Remus corner. Here, fully gunning the throttle and just carefully keeping the car over to the right side, but we'll switch it gradually over to the left hand side here, trying to keep as much speed in a straight line before stamping on the brakes once again just before that 100 metre board, and goes a little bit deep here does Emmons, but you can see how he catches the car, and that means he's able to get back on the throttle and exit turn 3 and now rapidly move up through the gears, trying to get up to the highest possible speed into the downhill braking zone of turn 4. A deceiving braking zone coming up. It's unsighted to an extent, the apex is hidden away and it's all downhill, meaning you need to brake earlier than perhaps you would desire to, but he gets it nicely hooked in there to the apex and then gets back on the power, using first gear there to give him extra rotation before coming over to the right hand side here through turn 5 to set up turn 6. A blind apex here, the apex very late and we only see it now, the apex, and you have to be committed and use the downforce of the car and also your faith to turn the car into the corner before coming to turn 7. Into sector 3 goes here and through turn 7, hooking it nice and tight on the apex curve before flicking back over to the right hand side for turn 8. A complete attack through turn 8, no lift, no braking, and now over the hill in towards turn 9 into Rindt corner here, and as he looks at that braking marker somewhere between the 100 and the 50 board, around 75 metres, you can see they're clattering the apex curve and getting a little bit unsettled, but settling the car down for the final corner, attacking through the final corner, breaking down a second gear and now charging up through the gears to complete the lap. And indeed a nice lap there by Emmons, and he'll be looking to do well today, and you can see just how fast it is around the circuit as we jump to our race rules. Now, one of the key things tonight, the biggest change tonight, as well as some new faces being on the grid, is the fact that in terms of the car setups, we will be looking at the iRacing low downforce setup for tonight's races. So this is a change. We've gone from the medium downforce setup to the low downforce setup, and that means as a result our drivers will have less grip available to them as deployed through downforce, and they'll have to focus more on tyre grip, but at the same time now, the top speeds of these cars down the straights will arguably be higher. And being tucked into the slipstream of another car could also be rather critical on the numerous straights here at the Red Bull Ring. In terms of the sprint race, each driver has one fast repair available, albeit if they do go into the pits, we suspect they'll be dropped down to the back of the order over the course of the sprint race, and it'll be very difficult for them to recover. And then we can see with regards to the feature race, our drivers' starting fuel loads are restricted as always to 75% for the start of the race. This means they have a mandatory pit stop where they need to take on fuel, but they have to choose whether they want to change tyres. They do not have to, it is completely optional. And again, each driver has one fast repair available. Now, without further ado, we head back to the circuit as we can see that all of our drivers are gradually getting themselves set up here as we've got somebody charging through. And if you give us 2 seconds, folks, a slight glitch on our timing screen, we can see in fact a number of drivers deciding to park up in the pits, but none the case for one Jean-Louis Deschamps here, making his way right now through turn number 6 in the downhill run towards turn 7. The Frenchman, also the Belgian I should say, not the Frenchman, the Belgian in the Porsche there, making his way out of the corner and heading up towards turn number 9. Now Deshaun having a good performance last time out, one of our pro drivers of course, and looking to continue that momentum from Donington as he makes his way through turn 9. And we say hello to all of those of you tuning in the respective chats, whether it be NXTGEN's Danzo or Danny Felix in the YouTube chat, Zeronic on Twitch, alternatively LMR Ignium Motorsport in the YouTube. We've got a lot of Ignium drivers racing today, and you will see those around the circuit, as we know that Billy Fletcher is going to be out on circuit in due course. We can see Billy Fletcher making his way around downtown right now through the final corner, and as he does we look a little bit further around. We've also got Edward Lack here, the CXR Project Black driver, making his way around the circuit to boot. And we can also say hello to Katie Eames in the Facebook chat there. Looking forward to this chat. Good luck Emmons and Bland, supporting George Bland and Matt Emmons. And we've also got Ed Knight in the YouTube chat supporting Ignium Racing as well. And it's great to have you all tune in. I'm hoping that you're having a good week so far, as we've got over the hump day today. It is Wednesday, 2 more days to go until the weekend, but some plentiful racing action ahead tonight. Indeed, be sure to say hello in the chat if you haven't already. Be sure to let me know how you're getting on and who you're cheering for tonight, as we see all our drivers with just under 5 minutes of the final practice session to go, getting themselves set up. And a lot of drivers were reporting that they were having to get used to the change in the downforce set in the car. Found that the car was very different. Now of course our drivers are not permitted to change their cars until they've completed the first, as I understand it, the first 6 races. So they're allowed to change their car at the mid-season point. However, not at this point, otherwise they will incur a 40-point penalty. And so a lot of them were reporting the fact that getting used to the switch from the medium downforce to the low downforce has proven to be difficult. And one driver in particular who I can point you to who has experienced some troubles would be Nigel Stock. And you can see him here, the Mercedes AMG driver, parked in the pits currently. And what he was saying is that he's hoping that he can get his terrible start to the season behind him. Still a bit annoyed with himself for throwing away the amateur class win at Donington. That was in, of course, the feature race where it's heartbreak for Stock. But he's going to be focusing on the here and now, and he only had access to this track on Monday, so he hopes he can do well in the Mercedes at the Red Bull Ring. And indeed, I'm sure many will be cheering on Stock. Now conversely, meanwhile, we have of course Matt Emmons, who is just, I believe he's just jumped back to the pits. In fact, Emmons making his way around on the circuit right now. He hasn't jumped back to the pits. He is in the Porsche 911 there. And what Matt was saying to me going into tonight was the fact that he's having to be a lot more patient with the low downforce setup. He's used to having a car that can turn in very quickly, as we see a Lamborghini there sliding off the circuit coming out to turn number 6. Indeed, it reversed its way back onto the road. There was a Lamborghini. I think that might have been Mark Sykes, I'm not 100% sure, but focusing on Emmons here and there as he makes his way through. He was saying that he's having to be patient with the setup on turning and power exit. And as for the Red Bull Ring itself, it's a bit of everything. It's got slow corners at the beginning, and he finds they're hard work to figure out, particularly turn 1 and turn 3. And then he's got the opposite through turns 7 to 10, when it's all flowing and you've got those higher apex speeds. And that's the challenge of the Red Bull Ring. It's a circuit which is about power, but it's also about nailing those apexes, particularly in the run from turn 7 to 10. Every corner, they're absolutely vital, and the run out of turn 10, well, out of 9 through to 10, is what sets up moves into turn 1. Should make some really interesting racing, he feels, although he just wants to get back to his pre-season form, because he feels like he's struggling with the Porsche, making that last minute change of course from the BMW M4 to the Porsche, and it hasn't quite worked out the way that Matt wanted it. But perhaps tonight he'll be able to clock it in with the Porsche and be able to improve on his season performance so far, and we look forward to seeing what the amateur class driver is able to achieve. Now I should point out as well, if you're wondering about why this individual in particular seems to have a little purple tag against his name, well, this is Jack Oliphant. And you may be wondering right now, hold on a second, is that the brother of the BTCC driver, Tom Oliphant? And it is indeed. It is the brother, and Oliphant is one of many members of the iRacing community, and indeed a member of the NXTGEN Racing community, who is joining us tonight as a wild card. So he's taking part, he's not involved in any points tonight, so should he finish in a quote-unquote points-paying position for either class, he will not be picking up any points. But this series is open to wildcards participating every now or so, and as a result, we've got our first wildcard racing tonight. Of course, he will be asked to show respect to our drivers of the other classes. He's allowed to fight them to a degree, but not go too far, and we look forward to seeing what Jack is able to achieve out on the circuit, as we can see right now making his way down through turn number 7 with only a minute to go until we head into qualifying. Indeed, I suspect today that for a lot of our drivers, it is going to be a major challenge with regards to the circuit and how the car handles around here, but we will wait and see. Indeed, it is a new era with those low downforce setups, and everybody will be wondering just how far the car is going to go and the challenge that comes with it. As he's making his way through here, and we can see that a little bit further behind him we've got Sigert there, Jochen Sigert, the German driver, of course, with that brilliant win in the amateur class in the feature race last time out. It really worked out to his advantage, as we've also got some more new drivers, and one driver here who many of you will be probably thinking right now, how on earth do you pronounce his name? Well, we have got the Norwegian driver of Øystein Herford racing his way down towards turn number 4 right now, and I can tell you that I did have to clarify with him prior to tonight as to how to pronounce his name. I didn't want to butcher it, but he is one of our new drivers in the pro category, taking part as a round 3 as qualifying is about to get underway, and we'll be very shortly heading there. We will be right back for the qualifying session, ladies and gentlemen. Alrighty then, well, the 15-minute qualifying session is underway, and everybody immediately getting out the pits as quickly as possible here in order to get a lap in. And what you can see is with the lap time coming in at approximately 1.5 minutes, our drivers will have ample time, the best part of 7 to 8 laps, in order to be able to get their qualifying times in. But you can see how everybody tucking in behind one another as well. Slipstream is going to be very important here, particularly in the run from turn 1 to turn 3 and the run from 3 to 4. And to answer the question there from David Whitehouse in the Facebook chat, do you have to pay for this series? Well, on top of the iRacing subscription, what this being the iRacing sim racing platform, there is a paid entry requirement for this series. Whilst I can't remember the price off the top of my mind, if you join the NXTGEN Racing community, I'm sure the admins will be able to inform you of what the exact entry cost is. And you can pay for either the whole season or the remainder of the season, alternatively to enter on an individual race basis. But what we can see right now is everybody's making their way up. We do have a little bit ahead right now. We have, by the looks of things, that is Paul King in the Lamborghini, who we're keeping an eye on, and we are going to jump on board with King as he takes us around for a lap. So coming out the final corner then, absolutely attacking the final corner and coming on to that start-finish straight, you're going to see in that Lamborghini, loud and absolutely screaming with the V10 engine, coming up towards the braking zone for turn number 1 here, braking at the 100-metre board and tucking the car in very comfortably into the apex before now charging all the way up the hill towards turn number 3 here, continuing to push, and as he builds up the acceleration here, going up through the gears, up towards top gear here, just pushing onwards. He's getting ready to sight that braking zone. It's going to be on the left-hand side, looking at there at the 100-metre board, coming down through the gears and very rapidly turning the nose in and getting on the throttle. A very nice exit there. You could see the language of the car where it just rotated for, and he could get on the power comfortably, and that's the mid-engine rear-wheel drive nature of the Lamborghini assisting getting that rotation through. But now the downhill braking zone here into 4, it could be a little bit spicy with the rear coming forward, but as he comes into that braking zone, gets a nice tight apex, and it doesn't look too squirrely, does this Lamborghini, coming out of the corner then and through 5 and up into 6, getting ready for the left-hander of 6 at the unsighted apex, breaking out that 50-metre board and now tucking it in, and as he makes his way through it, riding the curb there and very comfortably making his way out here. It looks so peaceful, the driving style of King here, but I can assure you he's fighting with the car and pushing it as hard as he possibly can, as he does come out to 7 and through 8, and now he's got the run over the hill towards 9 here into ring corner, and this is where he needs to carry as much apex speed so he can get the best possible line down into 10. He's going to look to turn in at approximately the 60-metre mark, and as he does so, rides a little high on the curb there. That unsettled the car, but he's kept it back under control and tucks it in over the apex there. And as he completes the lap, what's this going to be? From the British driver, he crosses the line here, and we're going to be getting those lap times coming now, and it is Paul King with a 31.337 elite lap time there as he makes his way up towards turn number 1 once again. But of course, we've got plenty of drivers coming through as we see Øystein making a very strong lap there. So Øystein Herford, of course, with a 1:31.314, very tight at the moment, as even more lap times will be coming in due course, as I'm hearing a lot of drivers as well are making their way out of the pit lane and deciding to go a bit late, as we see that Edward Lack now jump jumping up into provisional pole with a 31.2. The CXR Project Black driver there doing a very good job in the BMW M4, and we have been hearing from a lot of drivers they reckon the BMW M4 is going to be a bit of a sleeper car here, and we're going to see a change of form. The Lamborghini Huracans seem to have been the strongest cars so far over the first two races, but now everybody's expecting that BMW to fly, and the Mercedes drivers as well, do not count them out. We can see already that stock in P7, that's P2 in the amateur class, but Alexander Batak doing a little bit better than him so far. As we look a little bit further down the order, and we've got George Bland here, of course, the McLaren driver, making his way through the right-hander of turn number 4, and I had the opportunity to catch up with Bland a little bit earlier before he got in the car, as Herriman sets the fastest lap. Now into the 30s we go. Herriman's worth 30.9, but what he was saying to me, Bland, was the fact that going into tonight he was not expecting it to be a comfortable run today. He's been finding the McLaren very hard work in the low downforce setup, and he does not expect to be too competitive, but he's hoping his consistency will pay off and he can keep his nose clean to gain more valuable points. And indeed, that's the one thing we know Bland for, is his consistency. If he's not able to get a top result, he's still battling for the points and keeping those laps nice and tight. And right now he is coming to the end of his lap, and what's this going to be from Bland as he comes to the end of his first flying lap? He runs a little bit wide there out of the final corner. He crosses that timing line, and it is going to be It is P13 overall, a 32.5, quite a way off of the rest of his top guys in the class right now, as we do see that Alexander Patak, where as he crossed the line here, the BMW driver doing a phenomenal job right now is the Dane as he crosses the line once again, and that was a warm-up lap there. He's going to be going on to another one, but right now he is looking very strong and only a thousandth off of Jeremy Debova, who is in that pro class, and Patak putting himself well inside the pros as the amateur driver right now and showing who's boss as we look a little bit further down the order. And I can tell you that Bastian De Silva making his way through turn number 7 right now and heading through into 8. The BMW driver here in the pro class, he's yet to set an indicative lap as he comes out there and heads up the hill towards turn number 9 and pushing through. What's this going to be from De Silva coming into the right hander very shortly? Can we expect some theatrics, or will it be a case he has to go around for another lap? As Nathan Ames, a new driver as well tonight, who we will introduce very shortly, goes provisional pole of 30.6, and Billy Fletcher 2.5 dents down, currently in the battle for pole position in the pro class. And we see here De Silva crosses the line, and what was it for De Silva? Well, it's not registered as a time. I think it's been invalidated, so he's going to have to go again. But right now provisional pole is Nathan Amos's with a 30.6 flat. And to introduce the man, he has recently joined us, and as he makes his way around, we can see that is the case that right now Aim is very new, and he's hoping to add some spice. The NXTGEN Racing driver looking to add some spice to the pro class and to take the fight to Billy Fletcher. So he's hoping for a good qualifying session to get him in a position to do so. Although he expects that off-tracks and instant limits will be key for this one. Indeed, in iRacing there is this tracking of off-tracks and instants, and when you hit a certain limit you'll be subject to a penalty, and nobody wants that at the end of the day. But Aim is right now very strong, particularly his sector 3, a 29.2 in sector 3, and that is what's setting him apart from the field right now as he makes his way in towards turn 9 once again here. And I think right now this is looking quite fast. Sector 1 was strong, sector 2 was a bit down. What about sector 3, you ask? Well, we're about to find out. As he comes out the final corner, it is not going to be an improvement, I do not think. As he's crossed that timeline, it is not, so he's going to have to go again. And Kerry Herrimans, do keep in mind, Herrimans had that valiant drive and was driver of the day last time out at Donington for that brilliant performance in the feature race, where he held on for a very long time to the lead, only to see it fall apart when he made a mistake at turn number 4 at Donington. But he came home in P3 in the pro class in the feature race, and you can see how buoyant he is in the fact that he is only 700ths off of Fletcher, who's in P2 in the pro category right now. All of our drivers, of course, up on that timing screen and continue to make their way around the circuit. We do still have some more laps to be put in from drivers such as, for example, Jack Oliphant right now, who is going on to a lap very shortly, I am sure, as everybody is continuing to press their way around the circuit. And it is a case that everyone trying to find a bit of lap time and also find a little bit of tow, and with these low downforce setups, that's only going to increase the amount of speed a driver carries into each braking zone. They've got to be wary of that, of course, because the extra speed may catch them out. But as he's making his way right now through turn number 5 and up into 6 here, we can see that Elephant just keeping the car nice and steady, looking quite composed here. And as he comes out of the corner, heading down towards 7, he does have behind him, I believe that's Mark Sykes, following him around the circuit right now as he heads through 7 and into 8. Was this time going to be from the BMW driver as he makes his way over the brow of the hill in towards turn number 9. I can tell you in that sector 2 there, that was a 29.62, a reasonable sector. We're looking at about average at that sector, so that's not too bad. As he comes through then turn number 10 to complete that, the A1 corner as it's named, he makes his way out, and with 6 minutes of the qualifying session to go, what's this going to be from the Briton? He crosses that timing line, and it is... the lap is not going to count. I believe there was a little bit of a track limits incursion, so he's going to have to go again on this lap. So some drivers really being caught out by the track limits here, and we can see Sykes just behind him right now, the Lamborghini driver, and Sykes, when I had the chance to catch him as he was just making his way to the car, what he was saying to me is that he's not very confident after practice he's had, because even though he did put in a high 131 in the end, it's the case that the Lamborghini feels unsettled in the low downforce setting. But if he keeps his head down, he feels he could be consistent and bag some points, and indeed that's what Sykes needs after a difficult time at Donington in both the sprint and the feature race. He will just look for that consistency and see what he can achieve. But right now what I can tell you is that Heremans has jumped up into P2. In fact, he's off circuit right now. Here's Heremans. He has made a mistake and come off the circuit at turn number 4, and he's going to have to wait to return as we take a look back at what happened to the driver, as he just simply spun it on the apex there, just coming in too aggressive, and the rear snapped around. Well, that's why Heremans is parked up there at turn 4 and having a little play in the sandpit, of course. As we look a little bit further around, and we've got Jakob Boshoff here making his way through turn number 4 in the Lamborghini. He is currently P11 overall, and indeed P11 P12 overall, and he's P11 in his class, I should point out. And right now we can tell you that in the amateur class there has been a change, as I think all of our drivers tripping over one another a little bit here. But I can tell you that the leading amateur driver, as we have got a Porsche there spun out at turn number 4, a number of drivers being caught out, particularly the Porsches in the downhill apex of turn 4. That Emmons right now leading the amateur class in this qualifying session in P9 overall, and he is leading by a sizable gap. And to give you an idea of the scale of that gap, folks, as we take a look at the class display here, what you can see is that by comparison he is the best part of 2 tenths up on Batak there as he makes his way down into turn number 9, and we can see the class set here as he makes his way through. So this is just the amateur qualifying timings right now, and we can see that Emmons are leading by a considerable margin, albeit Batak and Stock both in the pits right now, probably getting ready to go again. And then it is the case that Jochen Seeger is probably getting ready to put in another lap as he makes his way out of turn 8 and up towards 9, and he's only half a tenth over. As we see a car going wild off circuit there, coming out at turn 7 and 8. I think that's Darren Doherty who's just gone flying off, but we can see that Seeger right now really pushing on, and as he comes through the final pair of corners, is this going to be an improvement? He's down in sectors 1 and 2. I do not think this is going to be an upgrade on his previous lap. He crosses that timeline. It's definitely not. He is going to have to go again. As we look back to our pro category by comparison, we can see that Amos here still holding on by 1 3/4 tenths ahead of Heremans as he goes wide out the final corner. That will be definitely a disallowed lap because you're not allowed to go that wide out of A1 as he comes down towards the timing line. Once again, he goes on to another lap. They've got a little bit of traffic in front of him in the form of a Ferrari, and we are missing a number of Ferraris here as he makes his way around the circuit right now. And as he continues his way, he's got the toe there of the Ferrari in front of him, and he will be benefiting from that toe considerably here. But of course, into that braking zone, it's going to be a case that he's going to be tucked in behind a car, which is also on a qualifying lap. And that driver will essentially say, politely on a lap. And you can see how the Ferrari has moved a little bit out of the way there as he went wide. And as a result, Amos able to continue down towards turn 4. But I think he will have lost a little bit of time as we bring back in there the timings for all of our drivers. And you can see how everybody's laps are stacking up right now. He charges down towards turn number 4 once again, and Aim is pushing on, albeit this is not an improving lap so far on my time screen. Sector 1 was an improvement, but as he's come through sector 2, here we'll see as he crosses that timeline whether he's able to keep himself green. He's green on our screens in sector 1 right now. This could be an even stronger pole lap, but we will wait and find out with 2 minutes to go. As he's crossed that sector 2 timeline, it is not an improvement, so the traffic of the Ferrari ahead of him did hold him up to a degree, and that I believe was the Ferrari of Matthew Addy, currently down in P11 in the the amateur class and 28th overall. And Addy continues to make his way around the circuit right now, and Addy are looking for a good performance tonight. He had a good set of races and battles at Donington, but I think he's got a little bit more on the table to give, and we look forward to seeing what he's able to achieve as he comes out the final corner here. And what's Addy going to be able to do as he crosses that timeline? I do not think this is going to be an improvement because of the fact he had the runoff, but you can see he's gone green in sector 3, so I think he feels the lap time is there. He's going to have 2 more laps. He'll just about squeeze them in, whilst everybody else now is coming to the end of their final lap. As I can tell you that right now it is the case that Oystein Hereford is parked in the pits, and as a result of that, I do not think he's going out again. So that's provisional P4 in the Pro class, waiting to see what happens in P4 overall. Meanwhile, a little bit further down the order, I can tell you that Colin Martin is making his way right now through turn number 4 and up into 6 he goes. He's currently second place in the amateur group. Sorry, not in the amateur group, my apologies. He's in what is P14 in the pro class. We had a small colour glitch on our screen, but you can see that he's pushing it through right now, and it's not really working out for Martin down towards the back of the pro group tonight at the moment. But of course, when Colin doesn't quite do too well in qualifying, he does make up for it in the race. A very strong race pace driver, and we look forward to seeing what Martin can achieve if this does not work out for him today as he comes through the final 2 corners here. It's not looking like an improvement, as I'm hearing that Amos and Herons have both pulled into the pits, so they're not going to try and improve anymore. And will Fletcher be able to find a way to improve? As we see that Martin crosses the line, and is this an improvement? It is not. He will have 1 more lap, however. He will squeeze in 1 final lap. Can he get himself away from the bottom of the pro group and get himself up into that top 10 on the grid? As we see, he pulls out the way, so it's not going to be the case. Colin Martin having a disastrous qualifying session, as a lot of our drivers have come to the end of their qualifying sessions. And we can see here we've got Gareth Mills, the South African driver, making his way out of turn number 3 here and heading down towards 4. What can he do in the BMW as he makes his way down? He's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him, but I think that's traffic which is also on the laps. There's going to be no change as he makes his way into that braking zone. Can Mills improve from where he's currently sat, or will it be a bridge too far as he makes his way out to turn 4 into turn number 5, building up that speed of course before sweeping in to the left-hander of 6 here. Currently on what is a 132.1 is the amateur driver, and indeed quite close to knockout right now. Only the best part of 300ths of knockout as he makes his way through turn number 7. Rides a little high on the apex curve there, and that's unsettled the car, and he's had to stop the car a little bit from getting a bit screw-iffy coming out of the corner. But as he makes his way over the brow of the hill in towards turn 9 right now, in terms of this lap, well, what's it going to be? I can tell you in terms of his sector 1 and sector 2, not an improvement. In fact, he's coming into the pits. So as a result, that's his qualifying session over, and I think for the majority that is qualifying complete. As we see that Edward Lack does improve to a 31.0, getting him into P7 in the pro category and P7 overall in the end. We've still got some drivers making their way around, and I think that's Lovesley coming to the end of a lap right now. Well, it's not Lovesley. We do have someone parked up on the circuit. That might be Sykes. Well, I think Sykes might actually still be on a lap. That was Bastian De Silva crossing the line, but that does mean when all is said and done, the only driver going around right now is Sykes, and he is in P31. As he comes through turn number 5 into 6 once again. But what I can tell you is that pole position has gone to Nathan Ames on his debut in this series tonight, and he will be joined on the front row by Heremans in the pro category. Meanwhile, in the amateur category, it's Matt Emmons who has qualified P13, and his next closest rival, Alexander Batak, is down in P18. So Emmons getting himself into the pro mixture in that amateur class category there, and doing a very good job. As we see Sykes just pulling into the pits now, he's going to be the last driver to bring the car in. He is aborting this lap by looks of things, and just simply bringing the car home, and just probably doing a little bit of sighting to understand where best to pick up the best grip, and also what to watch out for when he goes onto his attack laps in the race. But that is qualifying, ladies and gentlemen, and as I say, Nathan Ames taking at pole, as you see him, the number 36 driver, and pole position in the amateur class has gone to Matt Emmons in the Porsche. A brilliant effort as we get ready for the race. Alrighty folks, well, as they start to line up on the grid, we can see that right now everybody getting set to go here. And it is the case that everyone right now just getting their cars onto that grid. Not everybody out there at the moment, but whilst we are waiting for our drivers to arrive there, we can see Nathan Amos taking pole in the end with a 30.4, a phenomenal lap, 1 3/4 tenths ahead at Kenny Herriman's there, and then down in P3 on that second row, it is Bastian De Silva, and alongside him will be Billy Fletcher. Fletcher not having as strong a qualifying session as what we've previously seen, but again, the shake-up of the low downforce settings really putting a spanner into the works of a number of drivers, and then on that third row it will be Hereford, and alongside him will be Harry and Melvin. Melvin not currently on the grid, but we can see that Oystein definitely there as Melvin joins him, and then in P7 is Jean-Louis Deschamps in the Porsche, and alongside him Edward Lack, a good qualifying session from Edward Lack, and then we have got what is Paul King there in P9, and alongside him Dirk Bouncers. Everybody gets ready to get underway, and indeed we have got some fantastic racing ahead as they pull off of that line. Oh goodness me, and a car's already got it very wrong there. What on earth has happened? That is Amos, who's just had a horrific start. In fact, that is the race underway. I think there's been a little bit of a mistake here, because it should be normally the rolling start sequence, but they've decided to go racing immediately. It was not a rolling start, and as a result, there's absolute carnage. As we see Silver, that's caught us out a bit by surprise there, folks. That wasn't in the programme, but Silver getting the best run of everybody as they make their way out here. And I'm wondering whether this is going to be aborted, because this is a shock to the system. I'm just checking it with race control. And I think it is the case that it was a grid start in the end, because in fact it's not a grid start. Well, folks, I'm having conflicting things coming. I'll let you know as soon as I do hear anything. It was meant to be a rolling start, so something has gone a little bit wrong with regards to the starting procedure, and that is why we have seen quite a bit of carnage at the start, because a lot of drivers were not expecting this, and as a result things have gone horribly wrong. But look, coming back to the racing action right now, I can tell you that we've all said and done Lack battling there with Melvin as they come out of turn 7 at turn 8. And as they come all the way round here, down over the brow of the hill in towards turn number 9, it's Lack. He's managed to get himself ahead, and behind him we've got Melvin having to go defensive, but also on the offensive versus Deschamps here as they come out of the corner and in towards turn number 10. For the first time of asking, they'll cross that line, and right now it is Bastian De Silva leading ahead of Billy Fletcher, and then behind him is Edward Lack in P3, Deschamps in P4, that's Harry Melvin in P5, Paul King in P6, Vlamic in P7, then it's Jakob Boshoff in P8. A bit further back, as we can see Andrew Lovesley down in P9, and then Gareth Mills getting the best start of our amateur drivers all the way up to P10. But I think that might be because of the carnage that we saw as well, catching a lot of drivers out on the start there, the grid start rather than the rolling start. But we see then it's Ndebova in P11, Arjan Bakker in P12, but behind him we've got Jeremy Debova, the older of the two Debova clan there. We've got the father battling with Jack Oliphant as he makes his way into turn number 3, defending to the inside, but Oliphant's going to try and go all the way. Well, not Oliphant there, it is Arjan Bakker. In fact, I'll find as now that is Hereford there, so we are getting glitched at our timing screens as well. Everything seems to be going slightly out the wall. That is Oystein batting with Debova, and as they make their way down towards turn number 4, we can see that as they go into the right-hander, where it looks as though there we've got Bakker being overtaken by Jeremy Debova. Indeed, just simply given the space there, 9, he's not battling with those class of drivers and instead opting to stay out of the way. I am checking in with race control. And well, it does seem as though that things are proceeding in terms of we are going ahead with the rest of this race with the standing start. And as a result of that, everything is going to continue for the time being, as we do see no further battling between these guys right now. But very sorry about the confusion there, folks, as we look a little bit further back, and we can see right now George Bland in P17. Been a reasonable start for Bland. He's moved himself up into P5 in the amateur class as they make their way through turn number 9. And Bland just simply keeping it steady. He's got himself ahead of Seeger. As we're hearing, there has been a major incident somewhere around the circuit, and I believe Boshoff has had a crash. So crossing the timeline here and heading up into turn number 1. And what has happened to Boshoff as he's crossed line? The car's just simply parked up here. I think we've had an abort or something's happened, folks, because we are seeing drivers park their cars up here. And in fact, yep, there is an abort, ladies and gentlemen. The race has been aborted. We've been able to get everybody to calm down the racing. And as a result, we can see here we've got Addy still out on circuit, but he'll be coming into the pits, I'm sure, very shortly there. But practically everybody has jumped to the pits. So, right, a little bit of confusion. But it is the case, as we say hello to Rodrigo Cazula there in the Facebook chat. And indeed, you are welcome to take part. If you want to know more, there is a sign-up procedure. And as we did mention to David Whitehouse that earlier on, who was asking as well, this is a paid-for series, but you can pay for participating in the rest of the championship. Alternatively, you can pay on a race-by-race basis. But be sure to reach out to the guys at NXTGEN Racing, the admin team on the Facebook page, for further information, as right now we are going to be looking to get underway with the racing once again in a short while. As soon as I hear anything, I'll let you know, folks. But I think there was a lot of confusion with regards to it was expected to be a rolling start, but instead it ended up being a standing start, and that is what led to the carnage. But we are hearing that there is going to be a restart, and we will be getting back underway with things in a short while. So give us approximately 2 to 3 minutes, and we'll have further clarification. But in the meantime, we are just waiting right now and instead getting some rather picturesque pictures of the Red Bull Ring circuit. As we see, our drivers are parked in the pits right now, and I believe we will be getting a reset of the lobby, so that way we will be starting over. We'll have our qualifying order, of course, from the qualifying session, for everybody just waiting to find out how the stewards and the administrators are going to run this. Right now, I am just listening to see what exactly is happening, folks. I apologise for a little bit of silence here and not too much information being communicated, but I do think we are getting a new lobby being formed very shortly, so that will take us approximately 4 to 5 minutes to get set up, but we will be back with race 1, the sprint race, in short order. I can assure you of that, but until then, give us a moment and we'll be back as soon as possible. Alrighty folks, we are back. Sincere apologies for that. We are currently trying to get everybody back into the racing lobby. This is going to take a little bit of time, but as we can see on the time screen at the top there, we have got 3 minutes before we get back to potentially looking at the sprint race with the rolling start. Now things have been calmed down. You can imagine that some tempers did get a little bit frayed from all of our drivers because they weren't sure what had happened, and indeed our organisers were a little bit shocked to see that their rolling start had turned into some sort of standing start and the carnage that unfolded. But everybody has cooled down and things have been restored, and we will have all 38 of our drivers, I understand it, heading back to the circuit as rapidly as possible. And we will be getting that rolling start underway this time. And this gives our drivers, of course, an opportunity to cool down, get some cool heads in, and then go racing once again. And we will be resuming from the very beginning of that sprint race. So it won't be the case that we've lost a couple of minutes. It will be that we kick off with a full 15-minute sprint race, start to finish, and it'll be nose-to-tail racing all the way through. Now, whilst we are waiting, of course, any observations we can make so far? Well, we have seen that upset, of course, with the BMWs in particular looking very strong around this circuit. And we're looking at one right now in the form of Bastian de Silva as he makes his way around out of turn 7 through 8 and then over the brow of the hill down towards number 9. We've still got a lot of drivers still to join us here, so it will be the case that things will be a little bit nip and tuck with that 1.5 minutes before this practice session ends, and I believe we'll be forming the grid. There may be some drivers who end up starting from the pit lane for the purposes of the sprint race, but we will see what we can achieve. But thank you for bearing with us. We've seen your messages in the respective chats, particularly Andy Dawson saying he loved it with what happened on the standing start. Indeed, we are hearing that we had to get the marshals out on the circuit. There were red flags being waved, and indeed a lot of pieces of debris all over the circuit. Indeed, quite a bit going into some of the stewarding huts coming out of turn 1 in the run up the hill through 2 and into 3. But we've been able to get all the debris off the circuit, so we shouldn't be expecting any sudden punches at this point, and we will be back racing safe and sound in very short order. We are hearing that everybody is getting into the lobby, and the grid will be the same as what we saw at the end of qualifying. So we will not be seeing a sudden change in the order. We believe we're not going to be seeing a sudden change in the order, but we are just waiting right now for everyone to get underway. And what will be going through the mind of the drivers here, it's the case that you've just got to keep your cool and wait to get racing again. As we see Andrew Lovesey there in the Ignium Porsche making his way out of turn 1 and charging up the hill towards 2 and 3. We also got that Mercedes there, the AMG roaring along just ahead of him, making his way up the hill. And I believe that's Ollie Wayne just ahead of him right now. Indeed, we see the Briton there in the Mercedes getting ready to brake into turn 3 as he goes through the corner here, just tucking in behind. And we were hearing down at the paddock that the Mercedes would be quite strong in these low downforce setups on the straights, and we are waiting to see the potency of that Mercedes. Hasn't quite worked out in qualifying, but I'm sure in the race Ollie is going to be able to demonstrate to us just how fast that machine can be. So I believe as a result now we are hearing that we will get the formation of the grid for the race. And now the grid will start to form here. As we can see everybody lining up there in the run out of turn 6, so we do now have the rolling start. All has been resolved, peace and order has been restored down at the paddock until they get underway for 15 minutes of racing. And indeed the fisticuffs will most likely fly, albeit sensibly with good sportsmanship, they will fly in the sprint race. Of course, as once again to reiterate that grid, it is Nathan Amers on pole there with Kenny Hermans alongside him, and then it's Bastian de Silva and Billy Fletcher making up that second row. We then got Oistein Hereford and what is Harry Melvin making up the third row, and then we have got Jean-Louis Deschamps and Ed Woodlack on row number 4, and then rounding off our front 5 rows, our top 10 is Paul King and Dirt Bounce. All these drivers being the pro category drivers, and then you have to go some way down to P13 for Matt Emmons, who you can see there in the Porsche out qualifying a good number of pros and the rest of the amateur field by a considerable margin, as it leads to Nathan Amers to take us away under the safety car. So as they all pull off out of the the starting procedure there, coming out of turn number 6 and through at 7 and 8. We can see all of our drivers getting tucked in very well as we get that refresh of our data, so we can see all the drivers on the circuit map for you in the top right hand corner. They come out of turn number 8 and down towards 9. And of course, once that pace car moves out the way, it'll be for Amos to dictate the pace and when we all go racing. And we'll see that that pace car is going to pull over to the right side, it's going to pull into the pits, and we wait to get underway. And it's a green flag, it's lights out, and away we go for the sprint race around 3. And Amos getting a very strong start there, as you can see. Look at Billy Fletcher going round the outside already as they go 5 wide into turn 1. They're going to have to slow it down rapidly because they're all going to squeeze in, and all the drivers make it through as we... Oh, goodness me! And that's Bastian De Silva, who's just been launched into the air by Edward Lack. My goodness, and he's just in the middle of the road as he's been clipped by another car there. And that BMW is in tatters as a number of other cars have been involved. But meanwhile, looking back up the front, we can see that in the battle towards turn number 3, that after a huge incident, we have got, I think that's Jack Olympha who's just spun off the circuit there as they all come up into turn number 3 under braking, and yellow flags will be out, I am sure, as Gareth Mills has also had an incident. I'm hearing that a lot of drivers have had a major incident as they make their way down towards turn number 4 for the first time of asking, and you can see up front Nathan Amos leading, but it's Harry Melvin in P5 right now as Dirt Bounce has had something wrong. He spun coming out of turn 4. There's probably been a little bit of contact, I reckon, as they make their way out of turn number 4 through 5 up into 6, and we can see here that already Colin Martin tucked in behind Edward Latters, Valaming, and what is the Shunt going toe to toe, and it looks as though we've got the Porsche going wide there, but he tucks it back in just about. That was, I believe that was Valaming just getting it back on the circuit as Deschamps going back to Deschamps being the black Porsche, and as they make their way out of turn number 8 and head up towards 9, you can see Colin Martin on the attack here. He's pushing side by side into 9 versus Edward Lack as they come through turn 9, going through ring corner here, and he has to back out of it as they make their way down towards the 10th corner and the end of lap number 1. So after one lap, it is Nathan Amos leading ahead of Billy Fletcher, followed by Harry Melvin, who is under pressure right now from Hereford, and also Heremans making their way through turn number 1. You've then got a sizable gap back to Edward Lack, a gap of what is approximately 3.5 seconds. Lack leading Colin Martin, and then Jean-Louis Deschamps, Valaming, and Ben Hicks rounding off our top 10 there. Then you've got Matt Evans in P11 right now, the amateur driver still well ahead of the rest of the amateur field. He has got Jeremy Debova, Jakob Boschov, and Paul King behind him. And speaking of Boschov and Debova, as we can see that Boschov versus Paul King on the inside here, Jakob on the inside as they make their way in towards turn number 3. And as they come round here, we can see that King trying to sweep it round, and he gets it wrong, and he takes the pair of them, and it causes a major incident. And we can see that Boschov there being collected and King moving off the circuit, showing the great respect there. But that is a disaster for both the Lamborghini drivers as King jumps to the pits. That car has had to be brought in for repair work, and Boschov will not be too pleased as Jean-Louis right now has gained the position versus what is at the time Colin Martin. He's got it done into turn number 4, and as they come through into turn number 6, let's take a look back at how it happened. So coming through turn number 4, you can see Colin Martin just got very deep on the corner. In fact, I think he had to stop the car briefly there in terms of getting on the brakes, and as a result, Jean-Louis just simply went through on the inside. And as they make their way over the hill now in towards turn number 9 for the second time here, you can see how it's very nip and tuck between our P6 through to P10 drivers as they all come through. Meanwhile, back up front, I can tell you that Amos versus Fletcher, well, there is a gap of 2.2 seconds and it's stabilising, but behind, we can see that Melvin versus Hereford here. Hereford up into P3 as they make their way into turn number 1 once again. And the Norwegian definitely showing his mark on his debut today as they make their way out of the corner in the run up the hill right now. And you can see that Heremans at the back of this pack as we sit in with the car of Heremans charging after the Lamborghini of Melvin up front as they get closer and closer into the braking zone. They go. He comes out to the inside. He looks to the move on the inside under braking into turn 3. It's a classic move into that very tricky right hand corner. And as he gets on the power, you could see how because he had that tight line, he wasn't able to build up as much speed on exit, but now Melvin will try and come back at him, but this gives breathing room of course to Hereford as they make their way down towards turn number 4, and you can see that Herreman's going defensive the inside versus Melvin, and as they come through the corner here, no change so far as it looks so Melvin tried to go for the cutback, but Herreman's just simply parked it on the apex. He's got that right to do so as they make their way down towards turn 6, and I'm hearing Tom Porter has had a major incident as they make their way down towards turn number 6 and through it, and you can see that a little bit further back Jeremy Debova right now battling side by side with Matt Emmons, and Emmons, he defended to the inside, but he's had to concede the position for the time being as they make their way out of the corner, and Emmons now the lead amateur driver, and the next closest amateur driver, Jürgen Knocker, is behind him. As we see behind them, you've got Norman battling with Stock here, Norman the pro driver battling with the amateur of Stock, and as they come out the corner here, we can see that Mercedes using all of its V8 power there to absolutely clout the Lamborghini on the straights, but behind them you've got Lovesley trying to get through the order as well, and Lovesley, being another pro driver, wants to get as close as possible to what is Norman at the time, but he's got Stock between when he has to stay in behind now as they make their way through turn number 10 once again and come down towards the start finish line to go on to another lap, to go on to lap number 4. And speaking of incidents, let's take a look back at what happened to Tom Porter only moments ago. So making his way up the hill then, we see Tom Porter here sandwiched in between, and that's what happened. He was clipped by, I think that was Navarro de Bova there, who just clipped him under braking into turn 3, and he was sent into the wall. What a disaster for Porter as he's down in P30 right now. I believe actually that's P27 as our time screen is updated. But meanwhile, we look around once again here, and we can see that after the early dramatics, things are starting to calm down a little bit as everybody's now starting to settle in positions, and we can see that Oystein Hereford and battle here once again with what is Melvin and also Heremans, the three of them, and it's been a change up of positions here as they come through turn number 6, and we can see that Heremans is now leading the pair of them, but it is the case that these three, equal pace, goodness me, and Melvin going to the inside, he sneaks the nose in there, and you can see how Heremans got caught out by that, because look how much the Belgian has lost in terms of momentum, as meanwhile ahead of them, you can see that Hereford battling with Melvin into turn number 9 here, he looks to the inside, but surely there's going to be no way here. He's too far back under braking into the downhill right-hander, but he's looking very potent, is the Norwegian, as they make their way out of turn number 10 and head up towards turn number 1 for another time. And as they go up there, I can tell you that Amos and Fletcher, our race leaders, are trading lap times right now and disappearing away from the battle for P3, which you're watching. But this is a phenomenal battle. Indeed, it is so close to call between these three, as we see Harry Melvin leads them now up the hill here, but it could change at any point. We look back from Melvin's car, you can hear the roar of that V10 engine just absolutely trying to break away from the BMW that wants to stay as tight as possible. Into the braking zone for turn 3 they go, getting tighter and tighter. To the back is Hereford as they make their way out of the corner, and now they charge down towards turn number 4, and you can see that it's a drag race as we know the BMW driver goes defensive here versus Heremans, and Heremans will try and find a way through. Behind we can see Jean-Louis Deschamps battling with Edward Lack. They come down into turn number 4, no change, but what about Deschamps versus Lack? Lack on the inside, Deschamps on the outside. Lack goes as deep as possible on the brakes, and he's not quite there. He's got his nose in a little bit, but it's not enough. But you can see how Deschamps got a pull around at the corner. Lack has got the inside for 5, but he's on the outside for 6. As they come through the left-hander here, will it be the case they go 2 by 2? They do indeed. They're both showing each other wonderful space here, but only one of them's going to make it through turn number 7, safe and sound. Or are they, as they continue to be side by side? It's almost as if they've agreed to do the entire lap side by side. As you can see how much time it's cost them. Look at Colin Martin. He's coming alive like a firecracker behind. He is charging, and he's right tucked in behind Lack now as they go up into turn number 9. And you can see how in the end it's the case that Deschamps has had to back out of it as Lack has got to head into turn 9. But brilliant action from the pair of them, as now Colin Martin would love a shot at taking on Deschamps here. The BMW drivers really come alive, but we've got those Lamborghinis up the front breaking away of Amos and Fletcher, but they've been given a lot of racing space to do so. As Deschamps tries to come back here versus Lack, he takes the outside to compromise Lack's line into turn 1, and as they come out of the corner in the drag race up towards 3, I can only imagine that the pack of cars behind Lack right now will all be salivating for the opportunity to make a move on Lack. But who's going to go for it first? Lack defends to the inside as tight as he possibly can. He sweeps back into the centre of the circuit. He knows Deschamps is going to try and send it all the way round. They go into the corner here. Deschamps goes a little bit deep. He rides high on the curve. Lack lacks the speed, and as a result, Colin Martin's now trying to get into the mix. The three of them are going toe to toe as they come down towards turn number 4, and Colin Martin looks between them. He's trying to go for the Moses manoeuvre, but can Martin find it? He can't. He has to back out of it. But Lack versus Deschamps, the two of them, and behind we can see that Jeremy DeBova battling with Edward Hicks there. That's Ben Hicks as they make their way out of turn number 4, and as they come around through 5 and up into 6, you can see Jean-Louis Deschamps versus Colin Martin. Colin Martin trying to go around the outside in the battle for P6. He goes wide and runs off the circuit, and as a result we can see now they all continue around. I think Lack's also had an incident. What's happened to Edward Lack? So this was like only moments ago. He's at the head of this, and as he made his way into turn 6, does he simply get it wrong like Colin Martin? Do the two of them do the same? The rear end just went, and as a result, he had to park the car there and reverse it off the circuit. So the two BMW drivers succumbing to issues of their own, and as a result now, that means Deschamps has been able to get ahead, along with Heremans, who's a little bit further up the road, chased after the battle for P3. But it is Deschamps who's now leading that battle for P6 as the trainer cars make their way up towards the timing line into turn 1 once again. A bit further back we can see Jürgen Nockert right now battling with what is Lovesey. Lovesey still trying to find a way past the amateur driver is the pro. He can't find it right now as we've got Ollie Wayne just ahead of them, the Mercedes AMG driver, using the performance of that Mercedes with the low downforce to hold on as they make their way up the hill, and as they come in towards the right hander once again you can see how Lovesey looks at the move. He's going to try and go as late on the brakes. He's going to try and send a message to Nockert, and he does, and Nockert has to go wide, and in the process you can see how Stephen Norman is now trying to capitalise on it as they make their way in the battle for P13 down towards turn number 4 once again. And as they continue to make their way down, Norman versus Nockert. Norman's got his nose ahead as they make their way into the braking zone, but he's got a very tight line as Norman as they come through, and Nockert tries to find a way to get the cut back, but I think the Lamborghini has finally parked it, and as a result it's not going to be a chance for Nockert to come back. Stephen Norman up into P14 and now pursuing after Andrew Lovesey. A little bit further back down the order, I can tell you, meanwhile, in P22, we have here Alexander Batak, the Danish driver, making his way out of turn number 4 and trying to hold off Jochen Siegert here behind. You can see the two BMW drivers batting toe-to-toe here, albeit a little bit separated right now, but Siegert would love to get close enough as they both make their way out to the left-hander at 6 and down towards 7. No change from either of them right now, but it is looking as though it could come alive towards the end as we see that George Bland, meanwhile, chasing after Gareth Mills here. Gareth Mills having got ahead quite early on, and Bland having that difficult qualifying session. He runs wide out of turn number 9, and of course Bland focusing on that consistency. It's his key to victory in the eyes of Bland, and as he makes his way out of the final corner onto another lap, onto lap number 8 here, he's looking for the move versus Gareth Mills, and Mills doesn't defend too much. I think he feels that he's got Bland's number. He has indeed, and no change at this point in time as we look a little bit further up the order right now. And I can tell you that further up, meanwhile, we have had some changes of position with regards to Matt Emmons versus Jeremy Debova. We will come back to that in short order, but focusing on our battle for P19 and right now and P18, we can see, oh, and was that a little bit of contact there, or was it the case that Mills just went too deep? We can see that Mills has rejoined there. I'm not absolutely sure. I think there was a tiny little tap, if anything, but what it does mean is that Matthew Addy, who is trying to get in here, he's gone on the outside. He's gone around Bland. In fact, he's got the momentum on the pair of them, as you can see that Mills battling with Bland here, so not wanting to let Bland through, but Addy getting the run. Of course, I think there was contact between the two of them there, as now you can see that Addy has gained 2 places for 1 pass as he makes his way up into P18 and into turn number 6. But meanwhile, for those wondering about Matt Emmons, well, he's made his way up into P9, and this is how it happened. And we can see it was Jeremy Debova getting it a little sideways, coming out of the final corner and just losing the momentum. Now, meanwhile, coming back to our live timing screens, I can tell you that a bit further up the order right now in that battle for P3, it's been going on for some time, but it is now Harry Melvin who is in that P3 position ahead of Oystein Hereford and also Kenny Heremans. And as they make their way up the hill towards turn number 3, no change between them so far. I think they're all just taking a breather. They've got less than 2 minutes to go come the end of this lap. They're going to have one more lap after this one, and they're going to have to decide on who is going to settle on what as they make their way out of the corner here. And as they proceed to do so, they push around and up towards turn number 4 now, and everyone just looking very equal as it currently stands here. No changes of position. A little bit further back, however, I can't say the same for Deschamps, who's under increasing pressure from Vlaming and Hicks. Well, I think he's going to have this position for the time being. And then even further back, you can see that that is Jeremy Debova trying to chase down Colin Martin. But at the rear of your camera shot, we have got an absolutely flying Lamborghini, and that is Stephen Norman right now. He's trying to find a way past Matt Emmons, who's just ahead of him, as Ollie Wayne is up into P12. And as they come out of turn number 4 here, I can tell you that Wayne has gotten the move done. He's the leader of the amateur class right now. How did he do it for P11? Well, let's take a look. So this was going into turn 1, and he just simply had a huge overspeed. I think Emmons may have made a mistake coming out of turn number 10, but that's how he got the move done. And you can see there how Emmons got caught behind him and had to back off out of turn 1. A good move there by Wayne for the lead of the amateur battle right now. As all of our drivers are coming to the end of their penultimate lap and the white flag is out, our race leaders have already gone on to their final lap. That is lap number 10, as we see everybody making their way for the right-hander. Everyone getting a little bit wide there, that low downforce plus the slipstream of the guy in front, the dirty air of the guy in front just costing them the apex capabilities there. And you can see now as they all charge onto the final lap, they will be looking for those opportunities, and none more so, I'm sure, than our Norwegian fellow here who's charging after Melvin right now. He's looking for a potential overtake, but there's no way through right now. But you can see how this battle for P3 has concertinaed and condensed together once again. It's spaced out, and there was half a second gaps between each driver, and now those gaps are coming down. And I think it's the case that both Hereford and Heremans have been waiting for the final lap and for an opportunity to strike as they both come down into turn number 4 here. And you can see Melvin went a little bit deep, and the rear just stepped out slightly. And he's got it back under control. Very good composure from the Lamborghini driver up front as they make their way into turn 6. And there's no change at the moment. They're all just waiting for an opportunity, waiting to see if Melvin makes a mistake. But I can tell you one driver who hasn't made a mistake as he makes his way into Jochen Rindt corner here. That is our race leader of Nathan Ames as he comes to the final corner on his debut tonight. He is going to take the win in the Pro Class and overall for the sprint race in round number 3. A brilliant drive there by a Lamborghini driver, and Billy Fletcher will come home 3.5 seconds behind in P2. A good effort from Fletcher. And then in the end, it will be Harry Melvin who holds on to P3 ahead of Oystein Hereford, and then Kenny Heremans in the end coming home in P5. Jean-Louis Deschamps in the end managed to hold on to P6, as we can see here the black Porsche driver of Deschamps making his way out into P6 across that timing line. And then we've got Vlaming in P7, Hicks in P8, and it's going to be Jeremy DeBova for P9 ahead of Colin Martin, and then Andrew Lovesley bringing it home at P11, and it's Ollie Waynes there who brings home a P12 in the amateur class, and that is the win in the amateur class. Congratulations to Ollie Wayne, a brilliant drive there and holding off Matt Emmons by a short margin. As now all of our drives come to the end of their sprint race, and we will be very shortly getting in those post-race interviews with our race winners. Don't want to miss it. We'll be right back. Alrighty folks, well without further ado, let's get Ollie Wayne in here, our winner for the amateur category in the sprint race. Hello Ollie, can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Firstly Ollie, congratulations on the win in the sprint race today at the Red Bull Ring for the amateur class. How does it feel to be on the top step of the podium?
Yeah, really good, especially after the last race last week. I had a bit of a unlucky time, but yeah, it was good fun that.
So going into the race, we did hear down the paddock a lot of positive thoughts with regards to the Mercedes at the Red Bull Ring. Did it come to fruition that you felt as though the car had a lot of performance in, you've been able to unleash it in the sprint?
Yeah, it certainly seems to go better on the low downforce setup. It was a bit understeery last week on the medium downforce. So yeah, even in practice, it was quick. So we thought it was going to be between me and the other Merc.
And then in terms of the racing there, we of course saw that you started a bit further down compared to Matt Emmons, who seemed to dominate the amateur qualifying. Just take us through, what was your focus in the race? Was it to go for the win or just try and get as high up the order as possible come the end of the 15 minutes?
To be honest, it was just trying to keep it on the road because it's a bit chaotic around there. There's cars going off everywhere. Matt was really unlucky at the end there, actually, because he got a slow down a couple of laps before the end. I don't think would have caught him otherwise.
Oh, that was very unfortunate. We did see that major incident with Bastian De Silva on the opening lap. We saw his BMW go and do some somersaults through the air. Where were you in all that? Were you having to take evasive action or were you just clear of it?
I can't remember, to be honest. I was probably sort of back cutting through it, just trying not to hit anyone, I think.
Oh, we definitely avoided it. And your thoughts going into the feature race in only a minute's time?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's reverse grid, isn't it? So, yeah, sort of fighting through the field a little bit. So, again, just trying to stay out of trouble, really.
Alrighty, well, thank you for joining us in the interview box and good luck in the feature race.
Thank you.
Alrighty, well, we got to hear from Ollie Wayne there. Very happy with the performance in the sprint race and looking forward to the feature race, and saying there just to focus on keeping it on the circuit and keeping it together. Indeed, it has been a rather chaotic couple of laps, or indeed the opening laps, and also the fact that we did see the failed race start, and that would have unsettled a number of minds as well. But Wayne being able to keep it together there and taking the fight and bringing home that win. And that was fantastic for him. And he's going to have to do it all again in the feature race. And we are currently trying to get Nathan Amers in to join us as well. If we are able to get him in for an interview, we will do so. But otherwise, we are currently building up to the feature race. Now, in terms of the times, folks, we're going to be getting that feature race underway as soon as possible. And I'll let you know when it is going to kick off. Right now, everything is just waiting as it currently stands, and as soon as I hear anything, I will let you know. In fact, we are just about to try and get Nathan Amers into the interview box. So if you give us just a couple minutes, folks, we should be able to do so. And we are hearing that the race lobby will be going live in approximately 5 minutes' time, so we're going to have a very quick turnaround. Hello, Nathan, can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you for joining us, Nathan. Firstly, congratulations on the win in the sprint race in your debut in the pro class. How does it feel?
Feels good. I mean, I had a bit of a heart attack when the first one was a standing start, and I wasn't sure whether it was going to be restarted or not after peeing. I made it about, what, 2 meters in that first race, so it was good that it was restarted from my point of view. But yeah, pole's so important here with turn one being so tight. I mean, it was just crucial. I managed to take the normal line, and from there it was just a bit of a managing game.
And speaking of that managing game, when we got the full sprint race underway, was it a case of just putting a small gap out to Fletcher and then just trying to match his lap times, or was it 100% all the way?
Yeah, I definitely didn't want him to be in the draft because there's so many long straights here. I feel like if you're within that 6/10, it's going to be pretty tricky to get out of it. But I think Fletcher got a slowdown at the end of lap one, so I think he kind of dug his own grave in that respect. So I was able to get out of the draft, and then from there it was get to the end of the race.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear in terms of being able to keep it consistent. And your thoughts going into the feature race, what are the fact you'll be starting right at the back in the reverse grid?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that yet. I mean, we'll see how it goes. It must be what, P30 something. So I mean, it's an hour, so I just need to survive lap 1 and go from there, really.
Indeed. Well, we wish you all the best of luck, and we look forward to seeing how you get on in the feature race.
Cheers, mate.
Right there, we're hearing briefly from our pro winner in the sprint race, Nathan Amos, and you could hear just relieved at the fact that things went well and the fact we did have that restart after the rather nightmarish standing start where we saw a lot of carnage, and Amos was right there, only as he said in his own words, making it 2 meters before ending up in the wall. But fortunately, we got things restarted and we saw a full set of racing in the sprint. So don't go anywhere, folks. We will be back as soon as possible for the feature race. I suspect it will only be a minute away. It's going to be quite a fast one. We're going to try and catch up on the schedule, and that does mean, of course, our drivers will have a little bit less time to get ready, but that, of course, throws its own challenges in the mix. But we will be right back as soon as possible for the feature race. Alrighty folks, we are back and we are now getting ready to go racing once again at the circuit here, and that is of course at the Red Bull Ring. It's due to get underway in a very short order right now as all of our drivers are heading back onto the circuit, getting themselves warmed up, and then it will be a go, go, go. We've got just under 4 minutes of this final practice session that gives our drivers the time to rejoin the lobby and get themselves set up. But you can imagine once they've been able to get round, it will be the case that we'll be lining up the grid and it will be the rolling start once again for the 60-minute feature. Now, just to remind you, there is a mandatory pit stop in the 60-minute feature race. Our drivers must complete the entirety of the race but have a pit stop somewhere in there, and that is to take on fuel, because everybody's fuel tank will be limited to 75% of the maximum capacity. And taking on tyres, well, that's entirely optional. If they take on tyres or not, it's up to them. Of course, fresher rubber may give them better lap times, but cost them more time in the pits there, as we see Batak decides to do a little bit of drifting through turn 9 and catch the car very nicely before rallying crossing his way back into the pits. Now, whilst we have been waiting for things to get back underway, we've just been checking in on the chat there, and we heard from Matt Emmons having a disastrous sprint race, but looking at bounce back. And also Jack Oliphant made it only 3 corners after the restart, then turned into someone on the straight completely accidentally and was completely his own fault, but oh well. Albeit it would have been alright if the first race had carried on, i.e. when we had the standard start race, because he gained 13 places at the start, but it wasn't to be. And Greg B there in the YouTube chat, not too happy with perhaps some of the quality of the drone from the front of the grid all the way down to the back. A good number of drivers perhaps drove a little bit below the standard expected. Indeed, I think perhaps just temperatures in the cockpits there, and also tempers flowing a little bit, but everybody calming it down now. Indeed, we did see some good quality racing in the sprint race. That can't be denied, as we see Ed Knight collaborating there. Well, there was some crazy in there, definitely there was, but we've got plenty of good racing action to come, and it's only a couple of minutes away before we get the formation of the grid. Now, whilst we are waiting for things to kick off, of course, the big question will be when can we expect drivers to sprint? Well, it's very difficult to overtake into some of the corners here, and we did hear from Nathan Amos, the winner of the pro category in the sprint race, that it was one of those situations whereby he wanted to be in the lead as early as possible and then just simply try to manage the gap to Billy Fletcher. And I think that'll be the case, that we could see a number of the drivers towards the back who are starting from the back, what of it being a reverse grid. They will essentially look to either try and find as many places as possible in the opening couple of laps, or once they can't gain any more places, perhaps they'll pit early and go for an extreme undercut. I suspect, unlike Donington, where we saw a good number of drivers literally pit in the final 10 minutes, we will be seeing pit stops at the midpoint, if not a little bit earlier today, for potential undercuts. We'll have to wait and find out, of course, and everybody will have their strategy in mind and will be set to deploy that strategy. And we'll also have alternative strategies should things not go their way. And the one driver, of course, who would love for things to go a little bit more his way would be George Bland. He wasn't feeling too good with regards to the McLaren here today, and he did mention that to us, and we pointed that out earlier on. But again, he could perhaps find a strategy which will be able to give him the opportunity to jump at the places and get himself right up there into some good points in the amateur class in the feature race. As we now only got half a minute to go before we're about to get that grid formation, and we can see everybody just starting to get themselves set. Plenty of racing ahead, and we look forward to seeing what is going to happen. Now Van Howenacker here making his way down towards turn 9 right now, and indeed Van Howenacker being in a good number of the battles in the sprint races we see. We have got, I think that's Deschamps spun out there on the entry into the pit lane. It was the black Porsche, I believe it was Jean-Louis Deschamps, as we see that Van Howenacker coming into the pit, and that is the final practice session complete, so we will now get the formation of the grid. As we just check in with race control. And indeed, we can see now we have got our grid being formed here as we pan over to the grid, and it's going to be starting on the front after that disastrous sprint race, it will be Jack Oliver, our wildcard driver, who of course is not racing in the class, he's just racing as a one-off here tonight. He will be leading us around, and Arjan Bakker will be starting alongside him there, and it's going to be one of those very tricky races, I think, for Bakker. Good opportunity for points here for Bakker, as we see at the grid then. So Oliver and Bakker on the front row, and then it's going to be Bastian De Silva and Boshoff sets off our second row there. The South African of Boshoff having a disastrous race, the sprint race, and then Van Hoornacker will be joined alongside by Paul King on the third row, and then it's going to be Navarro de Bova, and shortly, most likely, Mark Sykes joining him on the fourth row, and then the fifth row will be comprised of Jack Wyborn, who we didn't see too much of in the sprint race, all the way down the back, had a disastrous sprint race by comparison with some of the other drivers in his class, and he will be joined by Tom Porter. That is the grid. Well, that's at least our top drivers there. Mikkel Andreasen and Darren Doherty forming the sixth row. As we come back to our drivers now, pulling away here, we can see we're getting the rolling start procedure underway, and everybody just starting to creep their way around. 35 drivers on the circuit, and I can tell you in fact that Sykes and Tom Porter have both decided to start from the pits. So Sykes will be starting at the back effectively alongside Tom Porter. They'll be at the back and they will be coming out the back, and I think this might be a strategic decision from Sykes to stay out of all the fighting and just have a clear start. But now as Bakker and Elephant take us down towards the final pair of corners, we'll see the safety car pop into the pits, and it will be Jack Elephant who takes us away. And you can see he's gone early, Elephant, and it means as a result, as he's gone, that already it looks as though Bakker has lost a lot of places, as we've got the green flag very early on there, and you can see behind how Van Hoornacker has gained, as behind him you've got Bakker who's lost the two as he goes very deep, and oh goodness me, there's been a major incident into the opening corner, and we've got Oliver just spun out right at the start there into turn one. We will take a look back at that. We can see more cars having to weave their way through the car, and George Bland being hooked on what looks like Colin Martin's BMW there, but it's gone horrifically wrong for a good number of drivers, and that's just opened things up as Van Hoornacker is now our leader, and we did not expect that as Jakob Boshoff is trying to go around the outside of what is there. That is Jack Wyborn. He's been able to find it through turn 3. He's found the outside line. It's going to be a drag race between the two of them for P4 here, and the pro going toe-to-toe with the amateurs. They make their way down towards turn number 4, and I think he's going to have it, is Boshoff, as he gets under brake and he defends the inside here, and he's been able to hold up as Mills tries to go all the way around, and he finds a way all the way around Jack Wyborn here. So Gareth Mills on a charge as well, up into P5 as they make their way through 5 and up into 6 here, and you can see behind Darren Doherty just trying to find a fight into this position right now as they go in towards that corner, dropping back down to what is P10, and he can't find a way through currently as he makes his way through the corner, but we can see that Mills battling still with Arjan Bakker here, and in fact, oh goodness me, both drivers getting into contact, and that's also, I believe, that was Jack Wyborn there just tapping the wayward car of Gareth Mills, and it is all kicking off already. I think the heat's getting to some of our drivers here, as we can see that Paul King is now up into P5. He's the second of our pro drivers right now as they come out the final corner. So after one very dramatic overland lap, it's Kurt Van Hoornacker leading ahead of Navarro de Bova by 1.1 seconds. Then it's Jakob Boshoff who is on an attack here versus, well, he's not on the attack here. That's Paul King behind him who's just made the move on Andreasen. Andreasen not battling and dropping down a P5, and then we've got Jack Wyborn down in P6, and behind him Alexander Batak, who is on the attack versus Wyborn as they go up towards turn number 3. And as they go up the hill here, will he look for the move? I don't think he's going to look for it this time. If he is, it's going to be very late on the brakes. He decides not to. You've got Matthew Addy there in P8 a bit further down, and then you've got Edward Lack. He's gained a lot of places as he makes his way out of turn number 3. Edward Lack gaining 10 places on the opening lap, and you can see holding off Stephen Norman right now as they make their way out of turn number 3 and down towards 4 once again. And meanwhile, Batak, he goes to the move here versus what is Wyborn. He looks inside, but it's not quite there. As a bit further back, you can see that Norman is clear as we've got Lovesey trying to find a way through, and he's found a way past Darren Doherty there. Of course, Darren not having to fight for this position because he's battling with a pro, and he is in the amateur class, but you see that Doherty has lost a lot of speed as he comes into turn number 6, and De Bova goes around the outside. That's Jeremy De Bova who's gone round, as Oystein Hereford also tries to find a way through. He can't this time, as behind these guys course, we've got Nigel Stock, who's tucked in very tight behind right now as the drivers come through here, and you can see how it looks as though that Ferrari is really struggling. Darren Doherty is really struggling for pace here as they come out of 8 and head down towards 9, and you can see where Stock is trying to attack, as behind him we've got Hicks also coming through, and Doherty is just dropping like a stone as they make their way out of the final 2 corners once again here. Our race leaders already crossing that timing line, but as they all come through to go onto lap number 3, we can see there's drama starting to build as we've got Blaming battling here with what is Matt Emmons. He's cleared him at the moment, and also you can see it dropping a little bit further back. Seager looking for the return on Matt Emmons. Can he get into turn 1? It's not quite there, but you can see how Nathan Amos is trying to gain positions, and Seager takes that inside line. He doesn't want to battle with the pros, he just wants to keep the pace, and we can see how Amos is on a charge right now as he'll next be looking for a move on Matt Emmons as they come up the hill towards turn number 3, and as they push all the way up the hill. They continue up here into the braking zone, and it's the case that Amos has got the move done. Emmons not putting up too much of a fight, and instead just carrying on his way as we look a little bit further out, and I can see that Edward Lack is attacking into turn 4, and he's got ahead of what is Norman and Batak here, as ahead of these guys Addy and Wyborn still battling for position. Matthew Addy versus Wyborn, and it's Wyborn who's ahead right now as they come out of the corner, and Steve Norman has got ahead of Batak, it should be pointed out, as they go for into turn 6, and Lack is tucked in behind Addy right now, and we can see Wyborn will try and cause Addy to fall back into the clutches of Edward Lack, so that way Lack can cost him a bit of time and enable Wyborn to pull away a little bit as they all come out of turn 7 and through 8 and up into 9 right now. And as they come out of the right hander in the long run down towards 9 here, you can see that Lack's looking for the move, and he's going to send out the inside, I think, versus Addy. He's going for the move, and there's a little bit, and I think there's been a bit of contact there, or it was the case. In fact, I'm not 100% sure whether there was contact, alternatively whether Addy just simply got a tank slapper on, but it does look as though Addy's car got a little bit of a push, or the rear end just simply lifted as they make the way across that timing line once again. But Addy has been passed, and Steve Norman has also got through there, as we have got the pros trying to come through the field right now. And then we can see they've got Hereford trying to battle his way past Lovesley. These two in the same class, of course, there'll be no love lost between them as they make their way out of turn 1 and head down towards turn number 3 once again. And we can see Nigel Stock there in the rear of your picture. He's been chased by Ben Hicks, but I reckon that the Mercedes driver will quite politely let Hicks through, given the fact he's not fighting it within the same class. As we see that Hereford versus Lovesley here, and Oystein has gone for the potential cutback move here as they make their way out the corner, and you can see how Lovesley in front of him right now, really having to do everything he can in that Porsche to try and hold off the fast charging Norwegian, as the Brit looks to the inside. He's going to defend to the inside, and as they go through turn number 4, will it be the case it's another attempt at a cutback? He looks through it, but there's no space to do so, and instead he has to back out of it for now. But Oystein definitely looking very fast here is the Norwegian as they make their way through turn number 6 once again here, and trying to find every which way through and get himself up into P10, and that is of course P5 overall in the pro class. That's P10 overall as they make their way through the left-hander of 7. I'm hearing that there's been an oh my goodness lord, what on earth has happened to Navarro de Bova there, who's just literally in mid-air for the brief period of time. Something has gone horrifically wrong. Let's take a look back at what's happened. So making its way out of turn number 7 here and up into 8, the rear end of the car just went, and then there was just nowhere for everybody to go, and you could see as a result nobody was expecting him to be there, and that is what happened to Matthew Addy, who was the one who sent the Bova up into the sky, and now he's going to take that car in for repairs, as Van Horenacker meanwhile in the lead right now, but he's got Jakob Boshoff chasing after him as they make their way up into turn number 3 for the 5th time of asking, and we can see that it is Paul King a little bit further behind them as they make their way through the corner here. No change at the moment. Andreasen a bit further back, of course. These two are race leaders, and they've got a nice little gap over the rest of the pack right now as they charge down towards turn number 4 and just managing the stintage of these guys right now. And you can see Andreasen further back, the Ferrari driver from the SAS Racing team, the Slow and Steady Racing team, who is just trying to catch up to our race leader as they make their way through the corner. And behind them we can see Lack versus Wyborn here. I think it's going to be quite a simple move given the fact that Lack's got the pace and he's been able to get past Wyborn and up into P5 overall, as both drivers now make their way in towards turn 6 here. And we can see Lovesley and Norman tucked in behind one another right now, and they've got Wyborn to clear very shortly. As we hear that further down the order right now, everybody's starting to make moves up through the order who started towards the back, and it's Nathan Amos who's now made his way up into P19. Well, in fact, he's just passed Jochen Seeger. as they make their way down the hill here into turn number 7. Once again, it is the case right now. He'll be looking towards Billy Fletcher just ahead, and the two of them coming through here. Fletcher, of course, starting one position higher than Amos. They're still in that sequence, but they will be chasing one another and trying, well, in case of Amos, he'll be trying to follow Fletcher through whenever he makes a pass, particularly on an amateur driver. He will not want to lose any time hunting down his main rival at the racing today, as 8 minutes have passed and we've still got 52 minutes of racing action to come. And we can see up front once again here, Van Hoornacker in the drag race versus Boschhoff, and I think Jakob Boschhoff is going to have this one this time. He's going to be on the inside into 3. It's going to be a battle on the brakes, and you've got Paul King just behind who would love to come through as well, but Boschhoff is going to get it done here. But how will Van Hoornacker come back? Will he get the run, or will he just simply tuck in behind and pick up the slipstream off of Boschhoff? And I think he's doing the latter here, just simply biding his time and not going for anything too extreme, as all 4 drivers here make their way down towards turn number 4, and we can see now King trying to find a way through. As we look a bit further back, and we can see a battle starting to build here. Lovesy at the head of a pack here that's got Wyborn behind him, but you see how Steve Norman's trying to come through, and he's got the move done here on what is Wyborn. Up into P7 overall right now is the pro driver, as behind them you've got Einstein Herford trying to come through as well, as they make their way through 5 and into 6, and Wyborn just simply staying out of this right now. 9, there's no need to battle with these guys as they make their way out of 6 and in towards 7, but you can see how hard the 2 drivers ahead of him are pushing right now to try and get away. But Herford 9, that if he can put the pressure on the Lamborghini and the Porsche driver here, he can really start to get good inroads and ingress into the second stage of this opening stint, in terms of where he's got to focus more on the car rather than the positions, as they all make their way through once again. And we can see up front Paul King getting the run here on Van Hoornacker, as he's going to be on the inside into turn 1. As they go on to lap number 7 here, and I think Van Hoornacker doesn't need to fight this one, just let it go and be absolutely fine. He's got a nice gap as Van Hoornacker to his main rival, who is Mikael Andreasen in the amateur class, who's 3 seconds behind. You can see Andreasen at the rear of your picture right now. He's just come over the hill out of turn 1, and that is the gap between Van Hoornacker and Andreasen, as they make their way out of the corner and head up in towards turn number 3. And you can see how Van Hoornacker is battling here with Ollie Wayne, who of course was in that disastrous start, who is a lap down as well and trying to unlap himself to go racing, but Van Hoornacker is trying to keep him a little bit behind, and I'm wondering whether this is costing him significant time, because Andreasen has just gained 2 tenths in sector 1 alone, as we hear that Jürgen Nockert is off the circuit right now. It's been a bit of an instant for Nockert, and he's just rejoining at this point in time, and he's just making his way back onto the track. As we look back up towards our front pack right now, we've got Ben Hicks here we're looking at in that Lamborghini, of course, in P11 as things currently stand, continue to push around, and as they come out to the right-hander, and as they come into the left-hander of turn number 6 here, it is the case that Hicks trying to find a way past Wyborn. I think he's going to get it soon as he makes his way through, and we're hearing that Nockert has jumped to the pits, so that car of Nockert is back in the pits for repair work, but that is all the way down in P32 right now. Focusing on that battle for P11, however, I think he's going to have the run here. Is Hicks coming out of turn number 8, and he's just got to sweep to the inside. He has got Vlaming behind him. He will want to get past Wyborn as quickly as possible here, because otherwise it's going to be a case for Vlaming's going to be there, but he gets the move done, but he goes very wide, and I'm wondering whether that is going to be a potential slowdown penalty on the cards. He goes wide once again. In fact, a number of drives going wide out of the final corner. We see Matt Emmons there in the middle of that pack, latching on, chasing after what is Vlaming here. Of course, Matt Emmons in the amateur class, he's not battling with Vlaming, who's in the pro class, but this is how close it is, and he wants to be behind Vlaming, of course, so that way, oh goodness me, there is a slowdown there for the Lamborghini driver, and you can see as they all make their way out of turn number 1 in the run up towards turn number 3, we have got Emmons who's on the inside there battling with what looks to be Kenny Herriman's there. Herriman's of course on the outside in the pro class. We've got the amateur class driver on the inside here. They go into turn number 3. He looks around the outside, does Herriman's, he's going to go for the move, but they all concertina together, and we've got Deschamps who's making the double move happen here as he comes through as well, and behind them we've got Billy Fletcher getting into the mix, and Vlaming has lost so many places right now. Vlaming was right behind the leader of this pack, and now he's dropped all the way down to P16. He's gone from P12 to P16 in the combination of 3 corners. He's going to lose another place here to Nathan Ames as they come out of the corner, and he goes wide as well, and then Colin Martin comes through, and Vlaming has lost it all in the space of 4 corners, and that is a disaster for the Belgian as he makes his way into the left-hander now of turn number 6. He's got to try and bring it back together, calm it down, and get back into the race, as meanwhile we see a little bit further up the front right now that Mattons has had a little bit of a mistake there. He's dropped some places, I think just a run wide out of 7 into 8. He's battling with Colin Martin right now. It's a drag race up towards turn 9, but he's going to have it safe as Colin Martin. as he defends to the inside there. No major drama. But further up the order, I can tell you right now that with regards to the battles, it's Stephen Norman in the battle for P8 versus Melvin here. The two Lamborghini drivers, both from NXTGEN Racing, of course, will not want to take one another out. Both drivers for the same team. Of course, they're only racing for their own points in this championship, but at the same time, the team will want them all to finish nice and close together and as far at the front as possible. But we look a little bit further back right now. We can see that Wyborn under increasing pressure here, as we've got Heremans looking for the move and Wyborn defending every which way. And in the end, trying to squeeze Heremans to the inside. He does so, but he has to give the space to get back on the racing line. And you can see that Heremans has got it done, and now it begins. Everybody tries to come through as he knocks Deschamps out the way, and I think it's the case that Wyborn just doesn't know where to go when he's got everybody trying to swamp through it. But Deschamps lucky to get away with just a brief tap and a run on the grass. That could have been fatal, as we see that Aim is coming through now, as Deschamps was knocked there and lost the speed. And we can see that Colin Martin coming through, and it is the case that right now that it is the amateur driver who is holding up this pack, and they all want to be unleashed. But as they come all the way through right now, of course, there is no, as we've had it clarified to us in the YouTube chat by Ed Knight, there will be no team orders through the NXTGEN drivers, and indeed we will not be expecting any team orders. They will all want the points, but they want to keep it smart and sensible and pick their battles wisely. As we can see right now that Aim is trying to find his way through here in P40. He's trying to find his way past the very tricky to overtake Wyborn here as they come out of 9 and into 10 once again. That's 14 minutes of the race completed, and Wyborn goes a little bit wide. I think this is his opportunity, and Amos needs to get it done because Fletcher is starting to creep away. He's 1.5 seconds away as Fletcher. They come up towards turn 1. Amos doesn't find it this time. He stays in behind right now, but this is costing him critical time as they make their way out the corner. And we see meanwhile in the battle for P3, it is the case at Lack versus Van Hoornacker here. They go into turn number 3, and we can see Andreassen's tucked in behind as well. Van Hoornacker goes defensive. He hasn't got the momentum out the corner, however, and as a result of that, it is the case that now Van Hoornacker drops down to P4, and he has got Andreassen, his main competitor in the amateur class, all over the back of him. And this is not good for Van Hoornacker as Lovesey gets tucked in there and goes to the move, and we can see how Hefford here is tucked in behind as well. All the drivers tripping over one another, and particularly the pros who want to come through as quickly as possible, but the amateurs trying to find the best possible way not to lose time. As we can see Andreassen playing the smart game here of just simply waiting, as Hefford has got Melvin all over the back of him right now as they come into turn number 7 once again. And you can see how the effective traffic for the pros is really causing them a difficult drive here. But at the same time, the amateurs running their own race, and they will want to focus on their races. As I'm hearing, there's been a brief off of Billy Fletcher as he made his way out of turn number 7 and into 8, but there's no drama there. He's looking for the move versus Heremans, and this is for position in the class now as they make their way into turn number 9. As they come through the corner, you can see Fletcher really trying to push on as Nathan Amos is behind him by 1.3 seconds right now, but it's closing very rapidly. What if Fletcher losing the time here, stuck behind Heremans, who is defending to hold on to the position. And meanwhile, Lovesey a bit further up the road in P5. He's going to be looking for the move here. There's been a little bit of a concertina into turn 1 here, and I can tell you that Lovesey right now, the NXTGEN Porsche here, looking to the outside versus Van Hoornacker up the hill into turn number 3. They go into the right-hander. It's 4 wide here, and who's going to emerge the victor? I think Lovesey's going to have it here. As you can see, Melvin on the inside. Let's find a way through, and oh my goodness, and he's just got it wrong. Lovesey has got it wrong, coming out of the corner there, and with nowhere to go, was clipped by the cars coming up behind him. And we can see now having to get that car restarted, and that is a disaster as Van Hoornacker has to defend versus Andreassen coming through turn number 4 here. And this is for the lead of the amateur class, as we can see Andreassen finding every which way to place that car, but no success so far as he makes his way out of 5 and into 6. But definitely looking fighty is the Dane versus the Belgian who we're looking at, and here is the Dane chasing after him. Of course, behind them you've got Norman and Hereford who are chasing after and battling for their own positions as well. But that was a disaster for Lovesey after all that progress, now dropping all the way down the order to P23 and having to go once again. As I'm hearing, there's been an incident involving Matt Emmons on this lap as well. We'll take a look back in a second, but what we can see right now is that what it is Norman Colin and Heather both trying to come through, and oh goodness me, and Heather trying to find a way on the inside into turn 10 and being so brave there, and that was near fatal. It's going to be a drag race coming out of the final corner going on to the next lap. Which one of them is going to be the braver on the brakes here as they make their way into turn 1? And I think it is going to be Heather. He's going to get the move done this time, but the fact he's had that tight line will cost him some apex speed and exit speed as a result of it. They're racing now down towards turn number 3, but I think the Norwegian has got it done for the time being. But my goodness, that was right on the nails there, and Hereford sending a move in a place where we didn't expect one. But he's got it done. As we see a bit further back, Billy Fletcher under pressure right now from Amers and Hicks, both chased after. We've got the three Lamborghini drivers here nose to tail chasing one another, and as we ride on board with Hicks here, you can see it just chased after these two a little bit further back right now, but Hicks following the two drivers who finished P1 and P2 in the sprint race, following them around the circuit right now and trying to use them as effectively his pace cars. If he can keep up with these guys, then he's bound to do well. That would be the logic as they make their way out of 4 once again. You can see just not getting the best of runs there and slipping backwards a little bit here, but it might be all part of the plan right now to pace himself to 1 second off of them, and if he can do so, it could work out very nicely as he comes out of turn 6 and heads into 7. And we go back to the exterior camera, of course, as we look further around the circuit right now, and I can tell you down the order we have got Tom Porter battling with Nigel Stott right now for P26. These two having a bit of a difficult opener to this race as we've gone past the 18.5 minute mark, but it is right now that Porter versus Stott, no change at the moment. And further back we have got Bland versus Bounce here. Bounce of course being the pro driver, whereas Bland in the amateur category here, but looking to get a move on is Bounce as we see a small glitch on our timing screen there, and I think that's just where drivers are crossing the timing line right now, but no major changes. We look back up the order and we can see that Paul King chasing after Jakob Boshoff, and no change between the two of them right now. The two Ignium Motorsport drivers here, just 1 and 2, and continuing on as we look a bit further down, and we can see Andreas, and he's got a pack of cars trying to salvate a position off of him here, and it is the case that the amateur driver thinks he's going to just try and stay out the way as we see that Amos has gone for the move versus Fletcher. Fletcher's gone wide. There's contact between the two of them. Oh my good lord, and neither driver wanted to give us that. That is Hicks who's collected the 3 Lamborghinis have all been, oh my good lord, that is a disaster there, and I think there's going to be a number of drivers harangued to the stewards room after this, because that was absolutely horrific what's happened there, and I think all of them have got a part to play in that one. Well, my goodness, we will take a look back at that in a second, folks, but that was a sight for sore eyes, and let's take a look back at exactly how that played out. Well, this is just when the contact started to happen, but can we find out where it really did kick off? That is the question. We're going to see as we take a look back here. No, we're not going to be able to catch it, but this is how it all played out, and then it was just the case that Aaron Lamborghini's here and Colin Martin doing very well to keep that car together. Well, coming back to the live pictures here and now, folks, I can tell you that with all that happening, there is the case that Fletcher is in P10 but has to pit. I believe there is major damage to the car as he makes his way out here, and it is the case that the other drivers involved in that, Hicks and also Amos, have dropped down the order. They've both really dropped down the order right now, so all of them out of the hunt for the win today in the feature race in the pro category, and this will open things up considerably to the guys up front right now, Boshoff and King, who won't want to repeat that. But that was major drama there as we see that Stephen Norman right now chasing after Heremans here, and on the back of him has got Van Hernacker and Andreasen behind, and Van Hernacker and Andreasen battling the amateur class. So we do have 7 of our pros now in the top 7 positions, and then we've got our 2 amateurs who are in a comfortable place behind chasing after them, but also battling one another, and no change at this point in time between the two of them. And you're looking and riding on board with Van Hohenacker right now as you're looking from the gearbox back, and that is Andreasen chasing after him in the battle for P8 out on circuit, but what is effectively P1 in the amateur class as they make their way into turn number 6 once again here. And we can see both drivers are making their way through it very comfortably right now before coming into turn number 7 and then into 8, and no differential between the two of them there as they come through the corner. Andreasen getting it a bit wrong and falling back, just simply running too high on the apex there through turn number 8, and as a result losing that time, but I'm sure he will try to come back in a very short order here as they make their way through. And we reload our timing screen for you so that way you can see the circuit map in the top right corner and see where the different drivers are as all of them make their way around. But Van Hohenacker definitely pushing things to the limit right now as we see Boshoff versus Paul King. It's the closest these two have been for some time, and King definitely closing down. That last lap, King was 6/10 faster than Boshoff. Boshoff at the head of these two. They're not battling at the moment. They're both staying out of the battling, but how long will it be before we do see a potential battle between them? That is the big question, of course, as they make their way out of 3 and down towards 4, and as they build up the speed here down towards the braking zone of 4, we can see King as close as he's always been so far on this lap, and no attempt at an overtake right now. I think King just sizing up Boshoff and waiting for the opportunity in the subsequent laps, because they've still got the best part of 38 minutes to go in this race, and they won't want to have an instant, not unlike what we saw between Fletcher, Melvin, and not Fletcher, Melvin, between Fletcher, Amers and Hicks earlier on, where those 3 drivers all got caught out together. But further down right now, I can tell you that a driver who is gradually trying to find his way back into this race is Alexander Batak, the Danish driver, down in P17 currently, and that's P7 in the amateur class right now, hunting down what is Arjun Bakker, who's just ahead of it. And remember, Batak was involved in that major incident on the opening lap, and you can see how much damage has been done to the front of the BMW. There's no front bumper left, and having to nurse that car around right now, but push it as much as possible after the repair work being done by the car, I'm sure, after Bakker, and trying to get in as close as possible, as we are hearing that King has made the move for the lead here, and he is now up into P1. How did it happen, you ask? Let's take a look. Well, it was simply a drag race here down towards turn 1, and King had the better momentum. I think there might have even been perhaps a little bit of a slowdown there, but as a result, King is now your race leader and the leader of the Pro category, as we're hearing that Matt Emmons has had a major incident. What's happened to Matt Emmons? So this was only moments to go, coming out of 6 and into 7 here, and does the rear end of the car just snap, and he gets too high on the curb, and the rear does snap, and it's into the wall, and we're hearing that Emmons has had to return to the pits because of that, and now Emmons will have to recover his race from the pit lane here. A lot of drivers having a disaster of a feature race so far, but we still do have a good 17 drivers on the lead lap, and a good number of drivers still racing. We have had multiple retirements so far, as we look down, and from our 35 starters, we now only have, I believe at this point in time, we only have 27 remaining out on circuit. Alternatively, at least at the moment, and not in the repair garage at the moment, as we can see that Nocker making his way around, the last of our active runners right now, chasing after Ollie Wayne, who is the best part of 34 seconds ahead of him. As we look a little bit further up the order right now, and I can tell you that Gareth Mills, meanwhile, in a bit of a battle here versus Fletcher. Well, Fletcher is coming through here, so I think Gareth Mills has just let him through effectively, and well, I think Gareth Mills has actually made a pass on Addy just recently as he makes his way through here. Let's take a look back at what happened. So in fact, Mills getting it very wrong. In fact, did contact happen between the two of them? So that's Addy as well. So this was the battle only moments ago then, up into turn 3. Addy in the Ferrari, of course, Mills in the BMW. Up into turn 3 they go here, and was there contact as they made their way in the corner, and Mills tried to squeeze the door on Addy there. Addy had his nose in, and I think the two drivers just simply not aware of one another. The stewards will be having a field day right now. We've probably got a lot of messages in the inbox for the stewards, as we see Colin Martin has come into the pits, and he's dropping down the order right now. So Colin Martin pitting, getting his pit stop out the way early and going for that early stop. I think it will be critical to time those stops right now with the amount of traffic building up and the number of cars that have been in instance and trying to factor their way back into the race. But there's our leaders once again, King versus Boshoff. No change between the two of them right now as they're making their way around. The gap staying in the region of 7 to 8 tenths, as we hear that Jochen Seeger is making the move here on Wyborn for P12, and this is P3 in the amateur class right now, and Seeger has got the move done, coming out of 3, and it's the run down towards 4. Has he nailed it, or will it be the case that we see the Ferrari try to come through here? I think if Wyborn's going to go for it, he's going to need to be very brave on the brakes. He's quite far back, and behind them you can see how Bakker under pressure from Batak, but this has been building for some laps. No change between these two at the moment, as Bakker does now start to build that momentum through 5. He's going to be on the outside for 6, however, is the left-hand blue at BMW as they make their way into turn 6. You can see Bakker holding that defensive line, and as they make their way through the corner, Bakker holding on for the time being, but Batak looking very strong here despite the damage on the car. as he makes his way out the corner here, and we ride on board with Batak as he chases after the Porsche of Bakker. They make the way out of 8 and head up towards 9 here. Now the question we've got to ask is, where's Batak going to go for the next attempt at the move? I would say if he can absolutely nail turn 10, he'll look for the move into 1 or the move into 3 here, but he's quite far back here, and I think that might be the damage of the car just limiting the speed he can carry for the corners, because you can see how much time he's lost. So there's going to be no attempt at a move this time as they make their way onto what is lap number 18. But meanwhile, up front, we can tell you that Mikael Andreasen has gone for the move versus Van Harnacker here, and as a result he's up into the lead of the amateur class, P8 on circuit, but will he be able to hold off Van Harnacker as they make their way down towards turn 4? And as they come into the braking zone here, the downhill braking zone, Van Harnacker tucks in, he looks back to the inside and doesn't manage to find a way through. That is the lead of the amateur class taken by Mikael Andreasen, and this is how it happened. So coming up into turn 3, you could see he had the slipstream, he went for it late on the brakes here and got it nailed on the apex and made sure that Van Harnacker couldn't come back immediately. You see, Van Harnacker expected that he would have the run out the corner, but it was not to be, and he lost the time there. And now as a result, Andreasen holding on right now, but Van Harnacker trying to come back at him in due order as everybody else continues to fight on the way. And these are just 2 of our many drivers trying to find their positions right now. But King versus Boshoff, I can tell you that gap has come down a little bit with Jakob Boshoff improving to a 1:31.2. That is his personal best right now, but the fastest lap out on circuit has been set by Kenny Herriman so far, a 30.98. But behind we can see how Jean-Louis Deschamps is now trying to find his way between the 2 amateur drivers. The pro would love to get them out of the way to go hunting after the rest of the pro drivers who are in the top 7 positions right now, but he's got to find a time to make the move and make it clear he's coming through. But right now no way through as it currently stands, as he comes out of turn 1 and heads up the hill towards turn number 3. Now a little bit further down the order, once again I can tell you that Fletcher, after everything's said and done, now in P17, and within the pro class he is running currently down in P10 and trying to find his way back into this, charging out of the final corner and up into turn 1 once again. It's been difficult so far, and indeed it's going to be damage limitation at this point. How far up the order can he come as Batak is into the pit? And that is what is Alexander Batak has come into the pits after that battle for what was at the time margin back of P14. But right now, looking back to our P8 man of Andreasen, he has managed to clear Van Harnacker to a degree. That gap has opened up to 9 tenths. I think the SAS Racing driver just has a little bit more in the tank at this point in time and is exercising that with aggression as he makes his way through turn number 7 here. Meanwhile, down in P19, I can tell you that Dirt Bouts right now, the Porsche driver getting the move done on Port today. He's been closing up for some time here, and he's gained the position. And that's George Bland also trying to find a way through here. And Bland, as they make their way down towards turn number 4, he'll have the run. Will he have the brakes, however, or will he be close enough to go for a move on the inside? I don't think so here. And Porter under pressure. What of the fact that Bouts was able to get through and clear him? Now it's a case it is a battle for class position. And Porter will try and do everything he can, I reckon, to hold off what is Bland, who's going to try and come through. And we know how strong Bland is when he absolutely nails a lap here. As I'm hearing that Arjun Bakker's just passed Jack Wyborn for P13. And in fact, Wyborn's come back at him. We are just going to take a look up the order. What is going on here? Where it's the fact that Wyborn has jumped into the pits. That's where the confusion has come from. But meanwhile, looking back down the order, we can see that Bounce has cleared that battle for P19. And it's still Porter versus Bland here. They go into turn 9. You can see how fast Bland is coming as both of them go extremely wide there, and I think Bland was coming in like a missile and Porter just simply didn't nail the braking point. But you can see how Bland is literally coming alive here, and Porter I think is just moving that way. I think he's got a slowdown penalty, in fact, Porter, because he's really come off the race tonight and slowed the car down. And I wonder if Bland's got one of his own, given how wide he ran off there at turn number 9. But Bland up into P18 for the time being and charging around the circuit right now, but albeit not quite on the track limits sometimes. But meanwhile, back up front, I can tell you that our race leaders are nose to tail once again, and you can see Paul King versus Boshoff here. The gap 3 tenths and closing. And as they make their way out of turn 1, it's no change at this current point in time as Boshoff is tucking in and looking for a way into this mix, trying to find a way into the battle once again after King got the move done. a few laps ago, but I think right now it's also putting that pressure on and trying to make him make a mistake, try to make him overuse his tyres, get them a little bit too high in terms of temperature. Just find a way to get the driver in front to run off of their ideal race pace, and it can help and make wonders work. As we see Edward Lack looks on 5.3 seconds behind right now, chasing after our leaders. He has got in front of him, however, Darren Doherty, who is a lap down in that Ferrari here and will be expected to move out the way in due course, as Lack will be pushing forward here, and I think Doherty will move out the way come the end of this sector, if not before. As Doherty here, I think that is a little bit of a lag spike there. Doherty disappearing briefly. That is not the case, that he's returned to the pits, making his way around the circuit right now, but we can see that Lack pushing on all the same here as they make their way around. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see that Hereford here coming through the left-hander of turn number 7 and into 8. And as he makes his way through the corner, it is the case he's hunting down Melvin once again, and he's got to find a way into the battle with Melvin, who's 1.3 seconds ahead of him. No change at this current point in time as he makes his way through turn number 9 here. In terms of lap times, I can tell you that on that last lap, it was the case that Hereford was 4/10 of a second faster than Melvin. As they come to the end of this lap, lap number 21 to go on to 22, Melvin with a 31.2 and Hereford with a 31.1, so closing another temp down, but both drivers going to their utmost pace at this point. And Heremans is the fastest man on the circuit. He's just set a 30.787 and is looking to get in there into that battle for the top 5 overall and with the pros as well, as I'm hearing that Jack Wyborn has had a major incident. What's happened to Wyborn? Let's find out. This was only moments ago. This was Jack Wyborn making his way up into turn 3 here, not battling with anyone. And does he simply get it wrong on the braking? He does indeed. He goes very deep, and the car just simply does not stop. The brakes just seized, and the car said no, and that is very unfortunate for Wyborn. I hope he's okay for the fact he's going to drop all the way down the order now, and it's not his day at the office. Indeed, for a lot of drivers right now, it's been a real struggle as they continue to make their way around, and Wyborn has jumped to the pits after hitting the wall there at a sensational amount of speed. Meanwhile, down in P16, making his way out to turn 1 right now is Deschamps, chasing after Matthew Addy. Of course, Deschamps having to try and recover after what has been a very difficult race so far for the Belgian. He's making his way out towards turn 3 right now. As he proceeds to do so here, I think he'll be looking for a formality versus Addy down into turn 4. He'll look to that inside line, he'll get the draft out of 3 and just simply nail it under braking. We will wait and see, however, as they charge up here. And a bit behind them, we have got Alexander Batak. He is battling with Gareth Mills here, in fact, and this is the battle for P19. And Mills backing out of it there, while the looks things as Batak has gained the place. I think Mills perhaps recognising the fact Batak is a much faster driver here, and as a result, just deciding to tuck him behind and not compromise his race by battling too hard. Perhaps Mills playing the long game here and just focusing on getting some good points, because right now he is going to be finishing in the points-paying position, and we can see that Darren Doherty is a long way back on these guys, a good 21 seconds back on the pair of them. As Jean-Louis Deschamps, meanwhile, still hunting down Addy here, getting closer lap after lap, corner by corner. When's he going to go for the move here? We see that Addy not defending too much here as they make their way through the corners, as we say hello to DK10 Gaming in the YouTube chat. And as it makes its way out of turn number 9 here, we can see that Deschamps touching a very, very fine line there between track limits and the racing line, but pushing all the way through and getting closer and closer to the back of Addy here, flying around the circuit, and surely it's only going to be a moment of time before he gets close enough. And I think with regards to our race leaders in the meantime, I'm hearing that the gap has opened up and King has got a 7-second gap to Boschhoff. Now what happens to Jaco Boschhoff? Let's take a look. So coming out to turn 1, the car just simply unsettled, and Boschhoff did very well to miss the wall there. That could have been a disaster for our P2 man. A good catch there, and he was able to keep it together. And Jean-Louis Deschamps has had an incident. We've got him marked as having a major incident. What's happened to Jean-Louis? So chasing after Addy, and we only cut away moments ago here. This was the drag race up to turn 3. He was looking for the move here versus Addy for P15. He looked to the inside, and as they went into the corner, well, he just simply got it too tight on the apex and had to park the car. He just couldn't get the car to settle the way he wanted to. And I think if he had released the brakes at all there, he would have been taking Addy to the cleaners there and his car with him as well. And that would have been a disaster. As we see now in the battle for P2, Edward Lack right there. And look, Harry Melvin also there behind behind him. So as a result, we've got a three-way battle for P2 right now, and this is not what the South African of Jaco Boshoff will have wanted as they make their way up towards turn number 4 here. And as we ride on board the gearbox here of Boshoff, you can see how now that Lack has got a target to go for, he's going to look very close behind, but not close enough to look for a move. And I think that was more just a case of getting on the power coming out of turn 4 too soon and showing to Boshoff that he means business does Lack as they make their way through turn number 6 for what is the 24th time. And as they come through the corner, you can see Lack now falling back a little bit as we go through the section where that low downforce and the dirty air is going to cost the grip. But you can see how Lack changing his lines, going for those earlier apexes there. And as he comes out the corner, it is a case that Lack right now trying to find every which way. He's going to have to go defensive. Is Lack versus what is Melvin as they make their way down into turn number 9. Lack having to take that defense now, and that is giving Boshoff the ability to break away. And you can see the gap has opened up by half a second over these two sectors, as Paul King has crossed the timeline to set a personal best of a 30.9 in this one. But Melvin right now looking very fighty and chasing down Edward Lack ahead of him. This is the battle for P2 in these three cars, the battle for P2 overall and P2 in the Pro category, as we see Oystein Hereford also catching up very gradually right now. Oystein at the back of your picture there, and also Kenny Herriman's following suit. So we have got 5 Pro drivers hunting down the battle for P2 here, and it's Boshoff leading it as we hear that Gareth Mills has come into and left the pit lane recently. And meanwhile, as they come through turn number 3, once again it's no change at the moment, but we're going to stay with this battle for the time being, because it is building up to a crescendo here as they make their way out of 3 and head down towards 4. And I'm sure right now all those drivers are going to be thinking, when's the pit stop going to come, because none of them have pitted as of yet. Do keep in mind, and it is Melvin who's going to have to look on right now as Lack looks for another move versus Boshoff there, and doing the same thing as what he did on the last lap, taking a very tight line through turn number 4 and showing to Boshoff he can be there at any point on that inside line. But it's not working out so far as they make their way through turn number 6 once again, and Boshoff is really under pressure, but he's doing a good job to hold off the fast charging Lack. And I think Lack's got to be very careful because he's been here before. Only a lap ago we saw how strong Melvin was in the start of sector 3, and can he find a way to get a move on? I don't think so this time, Melvin. I think he's going to have to wait once again, but you can see how Lack taking a very aggressive line into turn 9. As he comes through the corner here, they make their way through the right-hander, and it is no change at the moment as they make their way onto another lap. As they come out of the corner here and through turn 1 and on the run towards turn number 3. Oh my goodness, and it's kicked off, and Melvin has made a mistake. Harry Melvin has had a spin coming out of turn number 1 there, just as we was expecting Melvin to get close once again. But meanwhile, in the battle for P2, you can see that Lack's the closest he's been, but he can't find the place to move. He does a little feint there, trying to find a way to dissuade and distract what is Boshoff, but it hasn't worked out for the time being, and he has to wait for another chance a bit later on in the lap as we continue to see the drivers race around right now. And we can see Lack has got the momentum this time. He got the switch back out of 3. He's got the inside line into 4. Oh, it's a battle on the brakes, and we know Lack very strong through this corner. He's been showing it lap after lap. Boshoff's going to try and find a way back though, but he'll be made to go around the outside into 6 here, and it's not going to work. Lack has gained P2. Melvin, of course, with that spin has dropped down to P6, and he's now 10 seconds down on this battle right now, as we can see that behind Boshoff, Hereford and Herrimans would both like an opportunity to go for the move here. As we check in with the chats right now, and we hear that Matt Emmons has retired the car due to a penalty limit being hit over the course of the race. So Emmons has retired. A lot of drivers have retired here. We've only got 26 drivers remaining right now, as meanwhile our top 6 continue around their way. Paul King is 8 to 9 seconds up the road from these guys, I should point out. But this is the battle for P2, and Edward Lack now leading it, being chased by Boshoff, Hereford and Herrimans, all making their way onto lap number 27. As we hear that Arjen Bakker has had an incident, and we're going to take a look back at what has happened to the Porsche driver. So keeping in mind, running further down the order here, making his way into turn number 1 and going through the opening corner here. Does the rear end just slide? It does indeed, and that's a disaster for Bakker, who was down that order, down in P17 right now, and Batak has got past him as a result of that. But meanwhile, coming back to this battle right now for what is P3 out circuit, we can see that Boshoff versus Hereford right now, and Hereford getting a very good run out of turn number 3, going a bit wide there, but looking very strong. And he's going to be on the outside here. It's the BMW on the outside versus the Lamborghini on the inside into turn 4. And what can the the Norwegian do as he makes his way through the corner where he's going to go round the outside, and then it's going to be the case that Boschhoff tucks back in here. Boschhoff just not having the grip in the corner there, and as a result Boschhoff really struggling with 41 minutes of the race complete, 19 to go, and none of these guys have pitted either, so the tyres are starting to hit their limit. And in the case of Boschhoff, I think a pit stop's due very soon because he is not looking comfortable in that car as the NXTGEN Racing driver. As we see now, Heremans is going to try and find a way through as we ride on board here with Kenny Heremans making his way closer and closer to the back of Boschhoff here as they go into turn number 9 here, and you can see how Boschhoff really struggling through turn 9. I think the tyres are gone on that Lamborghini because it is not rotating through the corners anymore, and I think Heremans is in with a chance here. He's going to get closer and closer. It's a drag race down towards turn number 1, expected to pull out here to go for the move, or does he? No, he waits. He's going to wait until turn number 3. He's going to look for that early braking point, now this corner, and then go on the attack out the corner. Does he get a good run here? He gets a reasonable run, does Heremans, but it's not enough, and it means now, and Boschhoff immediately pulling over to the right side, aware of the fact that Heremans is going to try and gain, and as they make their way up the hill once again here, you can see that there's no move on from Heremans. He's not going to try and send it. He's going to wait for the time being as they make their way through the corner and now head down towards turn 4. You can see the snap oversteer there as Heremans makes the correction, really trying to stay as close as possible. I think he recognises that Boschhoff on the straights has too much straight line speed in the Lamborghini, plus the toe of Hereford ahead of him to hold off. He needs to nail it in the corner. He needs to be so close as to be kissing the back of that Lamborghini, so that way he can be there and go for the move under braking. That's the only way he's going to get it done here as they make their way around once again, and we look to the exterior cameras and you can see how Heremans pushing on right now, but there's just not enough straight line speed in that Porsche in order to get done. He's got to get as close as possible within 2 tenths, I reckon, or he's got to try and get Boschhoff to make a mistake. As he makes his way through left-hander, we're hearing that George Bland has come into the pits from what was at the time P15, as meanwhile they make their way around here, do our battlers for P2, and we can see already how Lack is pulling away a little bit here as he makes his way through turn number 9. He's just starting to eat that gap out as Hereford is chasing after him. Of course, the 2 BMW drivers looking very strong, and the BMWs really working well here at the Austrian circuit as they make their way out of turn number 10 and head up towards turn number 1 once again. And Heremans about as close as he has been previously as they make their way through the corner here, and we see Kenny Heremans gets another run, but is it enough? It's not enough as we hear Bland is coming out the pits and Ollie Wayne is battling with Dirt Bounce right now. This is the battle for P16. Wayne has got behind him, I believe, well, that is one of our other cars here, and that is Melvin, who is a lap up. In fact, Wayne having to move out of the way there. So Melvin, who would love an opportunity to get into that battle of a P3, he's not going to get it for now. And we can see that these drivers all having to try and find a way round one another as Van Hohenacker has come into the pits from P8 out of the circuit, and that releases Andreasen, who is our amateur race leader, who was in P7 at the time. It releases the pressure, but Van Hohenacker definitely going for the undercut as we see these drivers staying in formation for the time being, but coming back up to that battle for P3 out of the circuit right now, or primarily P number 4 between Boschhoff and Heremans. No change. In fact, Heremans, I think, has taken a bit too much life out the tyres here, and as a result of that, he's now having to back off. He put the pressure on, but it wasn't enough, and now he's going to have to wait. With 45 minutes of this race complete come the end of this lap. This is, of course, the end of lap number 29. You have to imagine, when are these guys going to pit, and who's going to be the first one to attempt to pit early to get an undercut in? And whoever goes in first, I'm sure the others will react immediately on the next lap. As further down right now, I can tell you that after his pit stop, Van Hohenacker, who was P2 in our battle for the amateur win versus Andreasen, it is the case that right now Van Hohenacker has got himself some clear space out on circuit, and meanwhile the driver he's battling with, Mikkel Andreasen, who we see here coming out to turn 8 down towards 9. What will the Dane do? Will he pit in reaction, or will he simply decide to stay? He's going to pit. He is reacting immediately. So Andreasen coming into the pits here, and this is going to be critical as Heremans meanwhile has got the best run he's had for a long time out of turn 1. It's the battle for P4. Boschhoff on the right, and then Heremans on the left. As they go through the apex, you see Boschhoff takes a very wide line. He gets on the throttle as soon as possible here. It's not going to be over until turn 4 because Heremans, whilst he has the lead right now, Boschhoff had a very strong exit out of the corner by taking that wide line, but Boschhoff too far back surely to go for the move here. Will he be able to find it? He can't, and that means that Heremans has got it done. He's up into P4 as Andreasen is in the pit still, and we believe that Van Hohenacker is starting to come around the circuit, and let's just see how this plays out here. Well, here's Van Hohenacker as Andreasen is coming out of the pits here. And how's it going to play out? We see that Van Hoornacker coming down towards that timing line, but meanwhile Andreasen is coming out of the pits right now. This is going to be really close, and we see Andreasen coming out in as the camera pans around. There's Van Hoornacker. It hasn't worked out for Van Hoornacker. He's still behind, and he's got Deschamps who's trying to find a way past him. So this is a disaster for Van Hoornacker. He's lost time to Andreasen. He's lost a second, and as they make their way out the hill here, we can see that Deschamps looking for the move on Van Hoornacker as they go into the corner, but he can't quite find it there. And meanwhile, back up front, I can tell you that it's the case that Hereford continues on his way, but both Heremans and Boshoff into the pit. So Heremans immediately responding after gaining the position off of Boshoff, and we can see as they make their way around right now that Hereford catch up to the back of Lack here, and these two need to pit soon. And imagine if these two battle on this lap, it's going to be the case that both Boshoff and Heremans could gain the places on the pair of them right now because of their battling, and that I think is why Hereford, where he's getting very close, is backing off under braking into turn 3, because he does not want to cause a battle that's going to cost them time. Because to give you an idea right now, Heremans has immediately left, and we can see that Boshoff has actually got the jump on him in the pits right now, so Boshoff is back up into P4 through the strategy. Meanwhile, looking back out on circuit, you can see that Lack versus Hereford here, they have not battled one another through turn number 4, and Hereford is standing right behind, but there's no change. And this is absolutely phenomenal stuff, because what it means now for these two is they have to react as soon as possible, because if they do not, there's a very high chance that Heremans and Boshoff will catch up, and Heremans has lost 2.8 seconds to Boshoff and the position as well. That's how fast Boshoff's pit stop was by comparison right now, as they make their way then around the circuit. And we're focusing on the P2 and P3 drivers here who have yet to pit, but I suspect they will be pitting very shortly. And as they make their way into turn 9, will we see them pit? We've seen Paul King, he's coming to the pit lane, and we see that both of the drivers here pit. So all of our top 3 reacting to Boshoff, Heremans and Melvin pitting, as Billy Fletcher has yet to pit. I believe, well, in fact, he has had a pit stop. So he is now making his way around the circuit right now, down in what is P6 this time, with Melvin coming out behind him and Fletcher carrying on his way, making the ultimate recovery drive here where he can to try and get towards that top 5. But I think he's in with a good chance of the top 6. But right now, the big question will be King, Lack and Hereford. Well, we can see that Hereford is already coming out of his pit box here, as is King. So Hereford is gained considerably, and Lack's coming out as well. And it looks like it's going to be very close here. But Lack just about holds on. They are literally, as they were going into the pits, they are nose to tail, these guys, and Lack has already left the pits and is making his way around. But where's Boshoff in all of this? Well, this is Boshoff right here as Bland goes wide out of the final corner, and you can see that Boshoff is not going to gain enough here as they make their way up towards turn number 1. And you can see the drivers behind, I believe back there, that is Matthew Addy in a battle with what is Billy Fletcher and George Bland, and Addy battling with Bland, of course, for class position, but Fletcher making his way through. And with now only 11 minutes or so to go here, it is all starting to see how the strategies unveil. But the one driver who is on his way to a win right now with a 6-second lead after a pit stop that went absolutely fine is Paul King, as he's just making his way down into turn 4 right now. But behind him, Lack has found a little bit of time over Hereford with the pit stop. That gap has opened up, and now he is 1.5 seconds clear of Lack over Hereford. But imagine how quickly Hereford may catch up at the end of this stint. As we see, and meanwhile behind them, Boshoff in P4 right now, and he's got a 2-second gap over Heremans. And do keep in mind who has just caught up to this pack. Well, it's none other than Billy Fletcher, the yellow-blue Lamborghini, charging out of turn at number 5 and into 6 here. And Fletcher on a mission right now to try and get into that top 5. Heremans is his target, and Heremans is literally 8 tenths up the road to him. That last lap from Fletcher was a 32.0. He is flying right now, is Fletcher, and trying to do everything he can to get back into that top 5 come the end of the race, as they charge over the hill here and down into turn 9 once again. And Fletcher looking very strong indeed. This is looking like qualifying laps from Fletcher as he makes his way out to 9 and into 10 here. And as he comes through the right hand, he goes a bit wide there. He's following Heremans closely. He's building up the speed as well as they go on to lap number 33. He's not close enough to go for the move into turn 1, but if he can nail it through turn 1 up into 3, this is going to be the best chance he could have of a move in a while. As they make their way out the corner, then he's right there. He's looking for the move, and you can see immediately Heremans going defensive to the inside before they've even got to 2. Let alone 3, and he's very wary of the fact that things could kick off here as Van Hoornacker has come back into the pits, which I think will release Andreasen to take the win in the amateur class right now. I'm not sure why that's happened, but what I can tell you is that meanwhile Fletcher has not been able to find a way past Hermans here, but is continuing to eat closer as a little bit further back from these guys. We've got Lovesy right now chasing after Jean-Louis Deschamps here, and these are battling for position in both the Pro Class and overall out on circuit. This is the battle for P11, and Lovesy very close to the back of Deschamps. He's going to look to the inside versus Deschamps. It's a battle on the brakes here. Deschamps has to give him the space as they make their way in, but you can see how Lovesy rode it very high on the apex curve there, and the rear end got unsettled, and as a result, he's not been able to make it stick. A good attempt, but just a little bit too high and dry on that apex curve as he makes his way down towards turn number 4, and I think it's not going to be a chance for a move here, as meanwhile Fletcher very close to the back of Hermans as they make their way out of 8. It's the run towards 9, and Fletcher's looking for it. He's getting closer and closer, and Hermans squeezes him as much as he can to the inside there, just literally getting in the car's whip, but you can see Hermans has got it very wrong. He returns to the circuit, but he has to yield the position, and Fletcher has gained the place. Hermans just defending too hard there and costing himself the run into turn 9, and that line was so tight. I think he was just trying to delay what was looking to be the inevitable. He's coming back, however, into turn 1 here. He's gone for it, but not close enough in order to get alongside, and Fletcher now, I suspect, will start to pull away as that gap is opening up at a rather rapid rate. It's already opened up to 4/10 of a second as we look a little bit further back, and I can tell you that Lovesy still chased after Jean-Louis Deschamps as they make their way onto another lap here, and you can see Lovesy only 2.5 tenths down as they make their way up towards turn number 1. Into the braking zone they go once again. Nothing so far as they come out the corner, but Lovesy getting a reasonable run there, but Deschamps getting the better run of the two, and I think they're going to stay in these positions for the time being as they make their way up towards turn number 3. Now a little bit further back, I can tell you that Ollie Wayne's still chasing after Dirk Bouts here. Wayne, of course, our winner in the sprint race for the amateur class here, and the car just looking as though it's not having the best of days. In fact, Wayne having to come into the pits here. This is for a second stop, so I wonder if there's damage to the car or whether this is the scheduled stop he was meant to be doing earlier on. But I can tell you it's a pit stop all the same, and he's going to be losing some positions as a result of this. But meanwhile, in that battle for P2, Lack at the front of your picture in P2, Hereford behind in P3, we can see that neither of them changing right now, looking very competitive on the lap times. Well, as they come to the end of this lap, we'll give you an idea of their lap times. We can see that last lap then for Lack, what was a 1:31.05, albeit with a track limits penalty being incurred there for running wide out of turn number 9. Meanwhile, for Hereford, it was a 1:30.95. Hereford, the faster of the two drivers by just under a tenth a lap at the moment, and he is continuing to push as much as possible and trying to find a way into that P2 position coming in. He'd love that, of course, on his debut in the series to pick up a second place in the feature race. It's been a huge effort, but even coming on the podium would be a brilliant one today. But if anybody knows Oystein, it is the fact that he loves to pick up the places and get the best possible result. A very competitive driver, and continuing all the same down towards turn number 4 right now. And we can see, meanwhile, Kenny Hermans behind in P6, and he has got that pressure, of course. He's got Melvin, he's got Melvin catching up to him 5 seconds down, but he's trying to apply the pressure to Billy Fletcher right now. And Fletcher, having got the move done, has not broken away as much as we would expect him to have. To be honest with you folks, he's only 4 tenths away and he has not eaten that gap open. And I'm wondering whether he's taken a bit too much out of the car in order to get the move done. But it is the case that both drivers are 2 for now and really pushing one another for that P5 position. And Fletcher is leading it currently, but we will see whether there is a change back in due course. But meanwhile, further down the order, we can tell you that Mark Sykes in P24 right now, chasing after what is Arjun Bakker here. These two had a very difficult race at the office, both wounded cars here, and we can see Sykes trying to find a way past Arjun Bakker for P23 as he makes his way through turn at number 6. But meanwhile, I can tell you, making their way out towards turn number 1, it's the battle for P2, and it is Hereford versus Lack, and it's all about turn number 1. Can he get a good run? He's had a very strong run as Hereford as they come out the corner here, and I think this is his opportunity as they make their way down towards turn number 3. He's going to get closer and closer. The gap's down to 2 tenths, less than 2 tenths, 1.5 tenths. Will he look for it? Will he swing to the inside? He backs out. He does not go for it. He's going to look for the run out to turn number 3 here, and you can see the difference in lines as he gets on the throttle. A bit of wheel spin, however, and it just costs him the run he needs to be close enough, and he has to do it all over again here. And this is how close the two BMW drivers are. They are literally nip and tuck with lap time all the way through, and as they make their way into 4, Lack seems to be the stronger of the two drivers as they go deeper into sector 2, particularly turn 4. And then going into sector 3, they equalise once again, and he's just got enough to hold on for the time being, as I'm hearing that George Bland is getting ever closer to the back of Ollie Wayne here, looking for the move on the Mercedes driver. Is the McLaren driver. They've got to be aware of the fact they've got Vlaming coming up behind them as well, who would love to gain the places off them for the overall position, albeit in a different class. But you can see no change so far, as Bland disappears very briefly before making his way up into turn number 6. Meanwhile, looking back to our battle for P2, we can see no change at the moment. But meanwhile, I can tell you that Fletcher is catching up to Boshoff here at a rapid rate. I think Boshoff has actually made a mistake somewhere on this lap, because he's lost a lot of time. And as they come through 9 here, Fletcher really coming to life once again, and Herriman's chasing after him as well. And there's no change at the moment. But meanwhile, coming out into turn 1, it is Hereford versus Lack once again. It's a repeat of before, and no change currently as they make their way up the hill and coming down towards turn number 3. Will it be an attempt this time from the Norwegian? He's closer than he was last time. He's right there in the grill. Can he do it? Can he get alongside? And into the braking zone they go. He's going to go for the move here, and watch out, Lack. You've got the Norwegian coming on the inside, and they're side by side out the corner here, but Lack will have the better run out the corner because he's had the racing line to take. And as they make their way, it's a drag race down towards turn number 4, and we know that Lack loves to run it round on this corner in turn 4, and he's back ahead for the time being. But Hereford looks to the outside, causing Lack to have to go defensive here, and as they go through the corner, Lack trying to hold on for the time being, but it could be the case that change of line cost him some momentum as they make their way down through 5 and into 6. No attempt from Hereford this time round as we look a little bit further back, and I can tell you that it is right now a case of Fletcher being pursued by Herrimans and also chasing after Boshoff, and he's got one eye forward, one eye back, I'm sure, and it's going to be a lot of pressure right now as these drivers make their way through turn number 7, and we can see that Boshoff really under extreme pressure and having to try to find every which way to hold off Fletcher, who is really trying to get more positions right at the end here. It's been a disastrous race in terms of his chances to win, but he wants to place it. He's going to go for the move here into turn 9, and Fletcher drifts a bit wide, and as he returns here we can see that Boshoff goes to the inside into 10, but Fletcher has got it done, albeit off circuit, and I think that's going to be a penalty accrued against him as we see that Boshoff loses the place to Herrimans, who's on the inside here with only 2 laps to go approximately. We can see that Herrimans is going to defend to the inside. He's going to try and hold it, and as he does, Boshoff will now look for the momentum out of turn 1 in the run up towards 3, as we're hearing that Austin Hereford is going for the move on Edward Lack. They go into turn 3 once again. This is the battle for P2. It's a repeat of last time, but this time Hereford was much further into the corner, and you could see that Lack wasn't able to turn through the corner as rapidly as light, and now Hereford's in a bit more of a position, but he's starting to lose the momentum once again as they make their way down, and it is a repeat, and he's going to look to the outside once again. What's he thinking here, the Norwegian? I think he's thinking of the cutback and trying to get Lack to go deep, but Lack parks it on the apex. There's no way through, but then as they make their way into 5 here, you can see it is the Norwegian on the left, the Brit on the right. They come into turn 6 side by side through the very tricky corner here, and they're giving one another space as much as they can, but I think Hereford has to back out slightly, but they're still side by side into turn 7 here. It's great stuff, and as they make their way through 8, neither of them wants to give up the position, but great respect shown. Hereford is ahead. He's got ahead through turn 8. Now will Lack come back in? Lack's looking to come back here as we hear that Fletcher is still holding on to P4 for the time being, but focusing on the here and now as they're making their way around to what will be their final lap very shortly, with Paul King the best part of 7.5 seconds up the road. I think Hereford has done it. I think he has finally got himself up to P2, and that was a huge battle there between the two of them. Lack will try and come back on what is the final lap here, but where can he do it? That is the big question. Will he do it into turn 3, where he's got to have the mother of all runs out the corner here as they make their way down towards turn number 2, and you can see how Hereford is trying to hold on as much as possible. He's literally taken the car all over the circuit, standing all the way to the left this time to say to Lack, if you want it, you're going to have to run the car in an awkward way, and that is a very unique defensive line. I haven't seen that before, but it's worked out. As you can see, Lack has been confounded and not had the momentum he needed, but he has had a strong run out of turn number 3, and as they make their way down towards 4 now, surely Lack's going to be looking for a move here, as we can see that Hereford blocking to the inside here, and Lack trying to find his way around the outside. He tries to swing it around, there's no way through, but then he looks for the cutback momentum here, but it's not going to happen as they make their way out, or is it, as it's going to be a drag race into 6? Will we see a repeat of what we saw previously, where they showed each other so much respect through the left-hander, where it's the case that Lack falls back instead? As they come down towards 7, I think Hereford's going to hold on right now as he goes a little bit deep. But I can tell you that right now, as these guys are still battling, the one driver who is not battling for position, but instead will take home the overall win and the win in the Pro class, it will be Paul King from the United Kingdom who crosses the finish line in the end. 7.9 seconds clear of the field. Well done to King for taking the win. And then in P2, coming out the final corner, it will be Oystein Hereford who holds on to P2, and I think Lack has just run out of fuel on the finish line. I had a slowdown, but Lack comes out in P3, and it will be Billy Fletcher who comes out in P4 ahead of Kenny Heremans, and it will be Jaco Boschov in P6, followed by Stephen Norman, who is making his way through the right-hander right now to complete his P7, and that's P7 overall and in the Pro class. As he comes across the timeline, Colin Martin in P8, a good recovery drive there from Colin Martin. And Harry Melvin in P9, Jean-Louis Deschamps, he'll be coming home in P10, and Andrew Lovesley will be just behind him there in P11, but then Mikkel Andreasen will bring home the win in the amateur class. A brilliant drive there, and in the end, beating out Kurt Van Hohenacker by 9 seconds. A brilliant drive from the pair of them, and Jochen Seeger once again will be coming as he makes his way out the final corner with Alexander Batak attacking him here. Will he hold on to the podium for the amateur class, or will Batak drag it across the line? No, it will be Seeger who holds on. The German holds off the Dane for P3 in the amateur class, and what is P14 on circuit. Batak there in P15, and then we've got Dirt Bounce finishing off through the corner here in P16 overall here as he makes his way across the line. The pro driver here coming home in what is P12 in the pro category. Congratulations to all of our drivers, but a brilliant drive from Paul King, and after the start really where he was allowed to just follow Jaco Boschov around, and he made the move against Boschov, quite a simple move into turn 1. It looked as though Boschov had made a mistake and lost the speed. King was able to just simply take the lead and never let go of it. And as for Hereford versus Edward Lack, well, a brilliant drive from the pair of them, a brilliant battle at the end, and great begrudging racing respect shown between the two drivers as we see Lack making his way into the pits right now. As for Fletcher, a difficult day at the office, but he recovered it in the end. And as for Mikkel Andreasen, as he makes his way around right now, I can only imagine the joy going through the mind of that Dane to bring home the win after a brilliant battle with Van Hohenacker. And in the end, it was an extra pit stop for Van Hohenacker, which cost him, I believe, in fact, it was the one pit stop. We just got that miscalculated there, folks. But it was just simply the way the strategy worked out, and also the fact that it just didn't go Van Hohenacker's way. But Andreasen coming into the pits right now, and we will be back very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, for our post-race interviews with our winners of the feature race. Alrighty, folks. Well, without further ado, we're going to kick off our post-race interviews for the feature race with our pro winner. That is the number 26 car of Paul King. Hello, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Firstly, Paul, congratulations on winning the feature race today at the Red Bull Ring. How does it feel to be on the top step?
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, it feels brilliant, to be fair. I was kind of wanting that race to finish a bit earlier because I could tell the guys behind had more pace than what I did. So it was just trying a case of keep it consistent and count down the clock. But yeah, luckily it paid off tonight. So yeah, very pleased, very pleased.
Well, that's brilliant to hear. And just with regards to the race itself, so we saw early on how yourself and Jaco Boshoff both started to pull away from the field, but of course Boshoff was ahead, but we saw you getting closer and closer. Was it just a case at that point in the race on stint 1 you felt as though you had the greater pace, or was there a mistake involved next? It looked as though Boshoff had got something wrong out of turn 10. He really seemed to lack the speed compared to yourself.
No, I was slowly catching Jaco in. I wouldn't say I was much quicker than him at all, but when I finally got onto the back of him, he very kindly sort of let me through in the best hope of trying to pull away from behind. So yeah, he let me through, which was nice. I think he got a slow down at the final corner on one of the laps, which is why I then got a bit of a gap, which was a shame. But yeah, we just done our best to try and give ourselves the best chance, really.
Oh, that makes sense. And we did see that when you were ahead of him, he was right on your 6 for a good chunk of that opening stint before the slowdown caused him to fall a little bit further back. With regards to the strategy here, we saw the fact that you had quite a bit of control over the strategy. Was it just a case of running that first stint long? Because you seem to be running at your leisure in the end.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky, to be fair, that I had no one directly behind. I could see Ed closing in, but I just tried to run the tank down till it was empty and then just pit when it was empty and go again, really. So, like I say, they had more pace than me behind, so it was just trying to manage the gap as best as I could rather than push too hard and ruin it. So, no, very pleased.
And I have to ask, with the switch from the medium downforce setups to low downforce setups, how have you found the challenge at the Red Bull Ring?
To be honest with you, the low downforce setup didn't feel too bad. I think the tricky part was the temperature more than the setup. But the car itself felt pretty good. I think everyone kind of agrees that the low downforce setup felt fine around here. So yeah, it was just trying to get used to the temperature rather than the setup for this week. But no, I enjoyed it.
Oh, that's great to hear. Now, looking from this week to the week ahead, Long Beach in a week's time, what can we expect from you at the American circuit?
Hopefully just keep out of trouble. It's going to be the first sort of street circuit that we go to, and it's renowned for being tight and twisty. So I don't know what's quite going to happen, but if we can keep it clean and just stay out of trouble, then I think we hopefully pick up some good results again. But take each round as it comes at the moment. Still a long way to go.
Well, I'm sure I speak on the behalf of those watching when we say that we really look forward to seeing what you can achieve at the American circuit. But congratulations once again on a well-deserved win, and we look forward to seeing you out on the circuit in a week's time.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Cheers.
Have a good evening. Well, hearing from Paul King, they're very happy with his performance, and in the end it was all about managing the run to the end. Indeed, he had the drivers such as Ed Lack and company catching up to him, but he had enough of a gap, plus also that gap management. It just worked out for him, and indeed we look forward to seeing more of what King can achieve at the circuit, and hearing that from his perspective, enjoying the low downforce setup at the Red Bull Ring, and you could see the comfort in the car. The body language of the car seemed to tell us a story where King just seemed to feel comfortable. Indeed, that smart play between himself and Boshoff there for the faster driver at that point in the race to be let through. But indeed, I think Boshoff would have loved to have come back, but it wasn't to be with a slowdown. But now, let's get our amateur winner for the feature race. That's Mikkel Andreasen, the number 696 car, into our interview room. Hello, Mikkel. Can you hear me?
Yes, Paul, I can hear you.
Mikkel, congratulations on another feature race win. How's it feel to be back at the top come the Red Bull Ring?
Oh, it feels great, man. It feels great. Nice to get some redemption from last race. And I actually got through the sprint race as well with points this time. First time that happened. But yeah, great race. Kurt was really fast at the start, and somehow I managed to keep up with him and make a pass into turn 2.
So with regards to the battle with Kirk, 'cause we saw it for some time, you two were literally nip and tuck, your Ferrari versus his Porsche. You both seemed to be even, but where was it where you were gaining on him just to be that close to going to turn 2?
I'm actually not sure, but I got a really good exit out of turn 1, and I think it was the first time I really got some slipstream on him, and I could manage to slipstream up to him, and he got a bad exit out of turn 1 on that lap, so I think that was the reason why I could overtake him there.
I see. And one of the things that we noticed in the build up to that, and if you don't mind me saying, I think you've got a reputation building, at least from our viewership and indeed myself, as being perhaps one of the politest amateur drivers, amateur class drivers we've seen, because every time a pro came up behind you in the opening, say 15 to 20 minutes of the race, you seem to very casually just let them through, not lose too much time to Van Hoornacker, but you just seem to have this art of being polite but staying in the race. Just take us through that, because every time we saw a pro come through, it's sort of, and they've already passed Andreasen, but he's already catching back up to Van Hoornacker.
Yeah, I'm trying not to fight the pros because it's not my fight really. I know they're really fast and they're way faster than me. So I'm just letting them by where I know I can, or where I lose the least time, and I try to do that every time. Especially I brake a bit early into the braking zone, especially the hard ones, and then he'll just shoot by and I don't lose any time by it.
I see. And then with regards to the opening stint today as well, we saw that management of the car, particularly when you were letting the pros through, but also in your battling with Van Hoornacker, you seem to only really push the car when you absolutely need to. Was there a lot of car management going on in the cockpit? Because we've heard from other drivers about the temperatures or the low downforce. Were you focusing on trying to protect the car?
Yeah, for sure. I tried to just stay relaxed and just stay behind until Kurt made a mistake. And I just tried to save some fuel as well. And that way, if I didn't take him on track, I could try to do something in the pits.
Oh, definitely. And in the end, it all prevailed for yourself. And with that in mind, what can we expect from yourself going into round number 4 next week, the American circuit of Long Beach?
Yeah, next week is going to be tough. It's a city track, so anything can happen, really. Barriers right next to you. But a lot of practice before the race, and hopefully it will go well.
Oh, well, we have our fingers crossed for you, Mikkel, but once again, on the behalf of all the Danish fans in the Twitch chat right now who are going crazy, and I can't translate what they're saying in there, but I'm sure it's very positive. Well done on another win in the feature races in the amateur class, and we look forward to seeing what you can do next week.
Thank you, Paul. Og tak til alle danskerne derude. See you next week, Paul.
All the best. Well, we heard there from Mikkel, very happy with his performance, indeed working it to a charm, and a brilliant battle between himself and Van Hoornacker. And whilst we would love to have Van Hoornacker up in the interview box, it's not going to be today, because I'd love to hear the perspective from Van Hoornacker in those battles between himself and Mikkel Andreasen. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that just about wraps things up for round number 3 at the Red Bull Ring. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and if you do want to know more about the NXTGEN Racing community, or indeed the iRacing GT3 Championship series that we're running at the moment and you're watching, then be sure to visit the NXTGEN Racing website. That's nextgenracing.co.uk, or the official NXTGEN Racing Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups NXTGEN Racing. We'd also like to give a big thank you to our partners, of course. That's the Apex Racing Academy, that's apexracingac.com, and also Next Level Racing, that's nextlevelracing.com. And as stated in our interviews, next time out we head to the United States for Long Beach, Wednesday the 4th of August 2021. And to give you an idea, we heard from both our drivers talking about it being a street circuit. And whilst we've got George Bland's McLaren right now just doing a quick trial lap and a demo lap around the circuit, you can see here how we've gone away from the wide runoff areas of, say, Donington, alternatively the Red Bull Ring, to now barriers left and right and ahead and behind. And it is the case now that it is going to be very nip and tuck and type racing. racing. And for our drivers, it is going to be a completely different challenge. What are the fact now they won't have the space to run wide, they won't have the places in order to battle off circuit. They're going to have to keep it within the track limits because the walls are the track limits, and they'll need to nail every single corner. And it will present a different challenge before we head into the first of our season breaks following round 4. So really it will be the culmination of the first third of the season, and I'm sure we are going to see a shake-up or two. But you will not want to miss it. Come back in a week's time for Long Beach. Until then, it's goodbye for me. I have been your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brit in a Spit. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, stay on track. Good night.